I can't believe he's testified. Oh, God. But hey, if he says something crazy, groundbreaking, that makes you believe his story, I'll fucking admit it.
On June 7th, 2021, did you take this gun or any gun like it and shoot your son Paul in the chest in the feed room at your property off Moselle Road?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh, did you take this gun or any gun like it and blow your son's brains out on June 7th or any day or any time?
No, I did not.
Mr. Murdaugh,
He looks pissed.
did you take a 300 blackout such as this and fire it into your wife Maggie's leg, torso, or any part of her body?
No, I did not.
But Cheyenne, he also told his family and friends that
300 blackout
that night
into her head, causing her death.
Mr. Griffin, I didn't shoot my wife or my son anytime. Ever.
You think so, David? Yeah, it's possible. He thinks he's going to get away with the murders and maybe get away with the financial charges, right? He might think that he's going to get away scot-clean. That's why he's fighting so hard.
Mr. Murdaugh, is that you on the kennel video at 8:44 p.m. on June 7th, the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
It is.
Were you, in fact, at the kennels at 8:44 p.m. on the night Maggie and Paul were murdered?
I was.
Did you lie to SLED Agent Owen and Deputy Laura Rutland on the night of June 7th and told them that you stayed at the house after dinner?
I did lie to them.
Did you lie to Agent Owen and Agent Croft on the follow-up interview on June 10th that the last time you saw Maggie and Paul was at dinner?
I did lie to them.
And in the interview of August 11th, did you tell Agent Owen and Agent Croft, did you lie to them by telling them that you were not down at the kennels on that night?
Yes.
Listen, this man ain't got nothing to lose. This is a man who has nothing to
why
lose.
Did you lie to Agent Owen, Agent Croft, and Deputy Rutland about the last time you saw Maggie and Paul?
As my
He's facing
addiction
life.
evolved over time, I would get in these situations or circumstances where I would get paranoid thinking. It could be anything that triggered it. It might be a look somebody gave me. It might be a reaction somebody had to something I did. It might be a policeman following me in a car. That night, June 7th, after finding Mags and Paul, don't talk to anybody without Danny with you. All my partners were just repeatedly telling me that. I had a deputy sheriff taking gunshot test from my hands.
I don't know if I agree with that. I definitely don't, actually. Testifying itself as a signal that you're truthful, honest, no. There are some people who think they can beat the system. There are some people who think they can manipulate other people. And there are some people who have nothing else to lose. At this point, like, things are looking really bad for him. So at this point, like, I feel like he's like, you know what? I got to testify. Like, things are looking bad for me. There's no way I can go up there and not testify at all, right, during this entire trial. So I think he's trying to turn the tides.
I'm sitting in a police car with David Owen asking me about my relationship with my wife and my son. And all those things coupled together after finding them, coupled with my distrust for SLED.
Distrust? You were like homies with them and stuff. They were like super nice to you. I don't know. One of the testimony made it seem like he was really tight with, like, you know, law enforcement. You know, everyone respected him in this town.
Caused me to have paranoid thoughts. Normally, when these paranoid thoughts would hit me, I could take a deep breath real quick and just think about it, reason my way through it, and just get past it really quickly.
Is he going to explain the family part too and friends?
On June 7th, I wasn't thinking clearly. don't think I was capable of reason.
Gotcha, Cheyenne.
And I lied about being down there.
Oh, like
And I'm so sorry that
he
I
wanted to
did.
make it seem like he was innocent by testifying. Like, oh, I ain't got nothing to hide type of attitude. Gotcha.
I'm sorry to my son Buster. I'm sorry to Grandma and Papa T.
Yeah, the jury might
I'm
buy
sorry
this.
to-
I don't know.
Both of our families. Most of all, I'm sorry to Mags and Pawpaw. I would never intentionally do anything to hurt either one of them. Ever.
So his paranoia of SLED took
Yeah.
priority over fighting the murderers of his wife and son. That's why he lied?
Did you continue lying after that night? Did you not?
But once I lied, I continued to lie. Yes, sir.
Why?
Why lie to the family members and friends?
You know, oh, what a tangled web we weave. But once I told the lie, I told my family, I had to keep lying.
Just like how you might be lying about the murders. That's not a good. That's not a good thing to say, Alec. Once I told a lie, I continue to lie. Lie till you die.
Alex, tell the jury what happened on the evening of June 7th, starting when you met with Paul.
No. Come on, Alec. You do
Been
better
at work
than
that
that.
day, a fairly normal day.
All right, we're back. We'll come back to this. Oh my lord.
You mean start in the morning, or
Sure, start in the morning.
you mean start in the morning, or
Sure, start in the morning.
it was just a regular morning? Maggie was leaving to go out of town. She was going to a doctor's appointment, and she had some stuff to do at Edisto, where she was having some work done on our house at Edisto. But Maggie was there that morning. She went to leave, and she told me she was doing these things. I always asked Maggie to come back home and stay with me. But anyway, Maggie had left.
Hold up, but he told investigators that he didn't know Maggie was going to come back that day, didn't he? You changing stories now?
She did her thing. I went to work, did work. I learned from Paul that
Who's Paul?
that's Paul, my son Paul, Murdaugh.
And your name for him was Paul.
Yeah, we called him Paul.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And Buster, Maggie, I called him Paul or Paul Terry, but Mags called him Paul, Buster called him Paul. A lot of people called him Paul.
I mean, he didn't call Paul. He didn't say Paul in the interviews or interrogations or any of the stuff in the 911 calls or anything. But like I said, I feel like he's saying Paul now because he's trying to be so performative for the jury. Oh my lord.
But anyway, I learned about I'd known that CB, the guy that worked for us, had sprayed the sunflowers. I knew about that, but I'd been out of town. I didn't know they were dead. Paul let me know they had died. So we had to replant the dove field. That's our dove field, which the dove field is just it's a big social part of having property. People come, and it's just a social big part of it. So the dove field was a big deal. So when the sunflowers got killed, we knew they were dead. Paul was coming home, and I learned that early Monday morning.
And did and we'll catch back up, but at some point in time, did you meet up with Paul?
Yeah, after work, I met Paul at the property.
And we're going to backfill and talk about more of the day, but I just want to focus in on that evening right now.
Okay.
When Paul gets to the property, what do y'all do?
First thing we do is we go to the Dove field, and we look at the Dove field. And
how'd you get to the Dove field?
he had come in my brother's truck. We got in my son Buster's black pickup truck. We called it Buster's truck, or the black pickup truck. You've heard it called too, but I call it Buster's truck.
Okay, so you're in Buster's truck and you go to the Dove field. Tell the jury what else.
Well, that's the first thing we do. We go to the Dove field and we look, and it was clearly it didn't. You could tell they were. I mean, you could tell they'd been sprayed, and you could tell they were dead. I mean, they might have still had a tiny bit of life, but they were dead. So we knew that. So we knew we had to replant the whole field. So that didn't take but a second. But after that, Paul. We just rode the property. We spent time together. We rode around and we spent time together on the property.
Did you go to the duck pond?
Oh yeah, we went to several food plots. We went to Single Oak Stand, we called it, which is across the road. I know we went to the Bridge Stand. We went to the duck pond where we stayed for a minute, and
Did you?
I can remember the duck pond specifically because I had helped Paul plant the Dove field and the corn in the Dove field. So sunflowers, corn, and I had helped him plant the corn in the Dove field. Paul had planted the duck pond by himself, and he's making a really big deal to me about how much better the corn was doing in the duck pond than it was in the Dove field. We stayed there for a little while. We rode.
Hi,
we were
Joanne.
at the cabin
Thanks.
for a little while. We rode around the cabin looking at it.
No, cabin is what?
That's it's just a little small. It's truly a cabin. It's a 4-room structure. It's got a little living area, a little kitchen. And it's got 2 little bedrooms and 1 little bathroom. And that's what you've heard talk about, where the kids stayed some summers. And
Is that what the jury's seen? Some overhead pictures. It's right there on Moselle Road.
yeah, it's right up on Moselle Road, and it's very close to the driveway that goes to the shop and the kennels.
Did you spend any time at the shop, you think?
Oh yes, I mean the shop was. I mean that was sort of the hub. That was the main place. If you weren't at the house, you might be out going to this field or this food plot or this duck pond or this part of the river. But the shop is where the kennels were located. You know, that was. You were always there. Something was always going on there. You're always doing something there. That's where all the tools were. That's where all the equipment was kept. I mean, that was the main hub.
Right.
And so we were there that day. I mean, there was a point in time where we unloaded a bulldozer that had been on a different part of the property. It was on a trailer. And we unloaded it and sprayed it down real quick. That was just one of the many things we did that day.
One of the things the jury's seen, Alec, is a Snapchat video of you and doing something with a tree. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
And so what was happening there?
That's just part of when we were riding. That particular location where that was is at a food plot that we called Sawtooth Oaks, and it was named that because there were some sawtooth oaks that were planted there that you can't see in the picture. But what that tree is, at all these food plots, there's an area where it's not as big as a field, but it's like a field where you plant vegetation for for wildlife, like it might be cowpeas or soybeans, but you plant, and then there's a feeder to attract deer. Then we planted these little fruit trees on these stands, and what you see me doing is fooling with a fruit tree that I'd been tending to. It had fallen over. I had straps on it. I had strings on it that were holding it up. One of the strings popped. I undid the other string, and it was falling over, and Pawpaw was laughing at me trying to get it back upright. And it was just a fruit tree that I'd been dealing with for years, and it wouldn't stand up straight.
And were you and Paul having a good time at that point?
You could not be around Pawpaw You could not be around him and not have a good time.
Were you close to Paul?
You couldn't be any closer than Pawpaw and I and Buster and I were and are. He's just wonderful. Wonderful.
And it's one of the things you enjoyed doing together was just riding the property?
I love doing anything with Pawpaw. It was an absolute delight. But yeah, one of the things, Paul's passion. Paul was passionate about a lot of things, but that property was really a passion of his. He loved to work it. He loved to work the fields. He loved to work the food plots. He loved to hunt. He'd work on the roads. He would work on all of it. He would work on the structure. He worked on the whole property. It was his passion.
So on the evening of the 7th, jury's been inundated with data from various different sources, but
sure,
just ballpark. Can you, knowing what we know now after reviewing everything, but roughly when do you remember Paul getting there and you getting there and starting to ride the property?
Now that I've had the benefit of seeing all of these records,
a huge benefit. Now that I see all the contradicting evidence, I'm going to retailer my story to make sure it matches with that, because there's no way to dispute the evidence at this point.
Pawpaw got home, I believe, a little bit before 7 o'clock. And I got home a little bit before him. I think the details had been that I got home around 6:42 or 6:45 or something like that, and Paul got there very quickly thereafter.
And then
by 7 o'clock.
So you rode the property for a while. Do you remember when Maggie arrived?
Yeah, it was later than that. It was 8 or after 8. I think it was after 8, and looking at the records, a little bit after 8.
And do you remember her arriving or where you were when she arrived?
I believe that I was at the shop when she came through, which would not be unusual for her, having been away. If Blanca had gotten the mail or somebody had gotten the mail, maybe not, but if somebody had not gotten the mail, it would be perfectly normal for her to pull through there. And I believe she did pull through there that day. And Paul and I were at the shop, I believe.
And then what did you do after Maggie arrived?
Maggie went to the house, and I know that. But shortly after, however I learned that Maggie got home, I went to the house when Maggie got home, and I left Paul at the shop.
So, and what did you do when you got to the house?
Wait, sorry. How far is the shop from the house? Oh, God, I feel like I have to rewind through it. You guys remember? How far is the shop from the house? Is it close? Is it nearby? Because my understanding from the timeline, it was at this point, they were all already at the house, and then Maggie arrived at the house, right?
I saw Mags, talked to Mags, and I took a shower.
And now he says I took a shower. Oh, now he conveniently remembers he took a shower and changed his clothes.
Clothes that we saw in that Snapchat video was that the clothes you had at work that day?
Yes. Those are the clothes I had on at work that day.
And the jury's seen you in those clothes, and what's on June 7th. How tall were you, and how much did you weigh?
On June 7th, well, I'm a hair over 6'4", right at 6'4". On June the 7th, I was about 265 pounds, 264, 265.
And this was in June 7th.
Yes, sir.
You know, when you're outside, riding around and do you get hot and sweaty?
Absolutely. I mean, Paul and I had done some things. We unloaded the bulldozer, cleaned the bulldozer. We fooled around. Yeah, I mean, I sweated. I was heavy, and taking prescription pills also makes you sweat worse, or at least taking oxycodone makes you sweat more than you normally do.
So was it unusual for you to take a shower when you got back to the house?
Not at all.
And after you took a shower, what did you change into?
I changed into the clothes that you've seen in this trial, shorts and the shirt.
Okay. When you got out of the shower and changed clothes, what'd you do next?
I went back out where Mags and Pawpaw were
What were
for
they
dinner.
doing? What's going on?
Mags had, as you've heard, Blanca had prepared dinner, but it had been cooked earlier. Mags had fixed. I know Mags had fixed mine and her plate because I didn't fix a plate. She may have fixed Pawpaw. Pawpaw was eating, and Pawpaw was almost done eating by the time I got back out, which also wasn't unusual. I mean, Pawpaw was always on the go. I mean, he never sat still. And, you know, he'd sit down to eat, but then he's going on to his next item.
And
So then Maggie and I ate.
And do you all eat at the table? Do you eat at the den? What's your normal habit?
We would do both, but, I mean, when we ate at the
Man, I don't believe the shower thing. I don't think he took a shower because I don't know, man. Here's the thing. Maggie got there at 8:17. By what? 8:35. They were already at the kennels. So that gives her like not enough time to, you know, eat dinner and then quickly go to, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I believe that. Because he said that like by the time Maggie came home. Okay, hold on. Maggie came home around 8:17, right? He said that he saw Maggie come home, but he was at the shop. And at some point, he went from the shop back to the house. He took a shower, and then he came out afterwards. How long do you think it would take for him to do all that? I feel like that would take, I don't know how long it takes for him to get to the shop, but like take a shower and all that. Like that would take a decent amount of time, maybe like 5, 10, maybe 15 plus 20 minutes, right? But like Maggie got there 8:17. So let's say she got there. Alex Murdaugh was at the shop with Paul, saw her, went back to the house, took a shower, quickly ate, and then they were already at the kennels at 8:35. Like that timeline is way too tight. It would make sense to me if Paul and Alex, maybe they were at the shop or maybe they're already at home. Maggie got home at 8:17. They quickly ate dinner, and then they took the ATV to the kennels. Ah, man.
The table, it was really sort of more formal or not formal, but
Can we verify if he said Maggie wasn't supposed to be there? No, he said like that Maggie came home, they all ate dinner together, and then they went to the kennels while he took a nap. But like that's his timeline is just not making sense. Because Maggie and Paul were already at the kennels 8:35 with Alex's voice in the background in this Snapchat. That timeline is way too tight.
just more of an organized thing. What we would normally do on a regular evening is we would eat in the den in front of the TV. And that's where we ate that day. I ate on the couch, the table. Maggie had a little a TV tray that she kept over there, and Paw would usually sit in a recliner and eat off of the ottoman.
Was the TV on?
Yes.
Was that normal for the TV to be on?
Yes. TV, if we were in the house, TV was on.
Can you tell us what was on TV? I really want to know. What were you watching on TV?
So what happened next, Alan?
Pawpaw moved on doing whatever he was doing. I don't know if he was in the gun room doing something, or he was in his room doing something, or he was outside doing something. I actually thought he'd gone to the shed, but in looking at to the shop, but in looking at the benefit of having these records that we have, I know he was still at the house or somewhere around the house doing something, but he wasn't in there with Maggie and I. But Maggie wanted to go to the kennels, and I had eaten dinner. I laid back on the couch where I was sitting. Maggie wanted to go to the kennels, and she asked me to go, and I didn't go at that time. I didn't want to go.
Why didn't you want to go?
It was hot. I just had a shower. I knew I'd end up doing more work, sweating more, and the dogs is always a chaotic scene, and I just didn't want to go right then.
Well, let me ask you, what had you done the previous days, like Friday and Saturday and Sunday?
Ragtime. You guys, shut up. I need to not reach out when I'm eating. Last time, I remember I choked on stream before because I was trying to swallow, and I laughed at something in the comment.
Start with Friday, or
Yeah.
go backwards?
Yeah. Start with Friday.
All right,
Just briefly.
Man, for a guy who has bad memory, he sure has great memory
June
about
4th,
certain details.
my dad was in the hospital in Savannah, Georgia, at Memorial Hospital, and I went down to visit him Friday afternoon, and I stayed with him in the hospital. I spent the night there. He was real sick. I mean, he was having a hard time.
Did you get much sleep Friday night?
No, I mean, I had a real sweet nurse found me. At first, there was just a hard chair in there like this, but a nurse found me a soft chair, sort of like a recliner. So, I mean, I'm sure I slept, but I didn't sleep. I didn't get a night's sleep. No, sir.
And then Saturday and Sunday?
Saturday, we had plans with Buster and Brooklyn. Y'all have heard about Brooklyn. It's Buster's wonderful little girlfriend. And Mags and I had plans with them to meet them in Columbia, to go to the South Carolina. It was a regional baseball tournament. And South Carolina was playing Virginia, I believe. So when I got back from Savannah and met up with Mags, at some point we headed to Columbia. So, I mean, there wasn't a lot going on in between there. We headed up to Columbia and met Bus in Brooklyn.
And then, did you stay in Columbia Saturday night?
We did. We went to the ball game, and I remember it was an evening game. We went pretty early and tailgated. Maggie had reconnected with a college friend who coincidentally had married a college friend of mine, and they had a son that played for Carolina. He was a first baseman and a really good little player. And we met them and tailgated with them, and it was a lot of fun. They had a lot of the parents of the players that were playing for Carolina, and it was a fun time. We tailgated, and then we went to, and it was a night game, so we went to the game, and the game got over. It was fairly late into the evening. And
Relevance?
that,
what are we talking about now?
Bus, Brooklyn, and Mags and I believe we went to the restaurant in the hotel where we were staying, but we went, had dinner, and then Bus and Brooklyn went home, and of course Maggie and I went to our room.
And then get up the next day, and was there another game?
Another game the next day. That's right. And
then after that, you head back to Moselle with Maggie.
Yeah, we went to the game. That's right. Mags and I go back to
Moselle.
Moselle.
And the jury's heard about think Ms. Rass talked about you bringing Krispy Kreme donuts to your dad.
Maggie loved her. She spoiled my dad, and always taking him something. My dad loved sweets, and she and I picked up donuts and took Krispy Kreme donuts.
Krispy Kreme tastes like ass in the U.S., but Krispy Kreme, I don't know. I had Krispy Kreme in Thailand. It was so fucking good. I don't know what the difference was. It was so good over there.
To him.
And then y'all both spent the night together at Moselle on Sunday night. Did you both spend the night at Moselle on Sunday night?
Yes.
And then
I thought Maggie spent the night at Edisto. That's what I thought.
the 7th was a work day?
That's right. It was a Monday, June the 7th.
Hang on. I'll rephrase it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Was Monday the 7th a work day for you?
Yes.
And I just wanted to give that background. And so moving forward to when you testified previously about Maggie asking you to go to the kennels, were you tired?
Oh, yes, I was tired.
Yeah, I feel like that tangent and being so detailed about that was to show that, like, hey, I'm usually a very detailed guy when it comes to describing things. But again, we remember how undetailed he was during the interviews and stuff like that. Yikes.
And you had just had a shower.
Just had a shower.
That you
And,
conveniently just remembered about.
And you said that, well, did you go with Maggie to the kennels immediately?
No, I did not.
What'd you do? What did she leave?
Yes, she did. She left and Pawpaw was gone.
Do you know how she got to the kennels?
At the time, I didn't, but now looking at these condensed records and understanding the timeline, it's clear to me that she rode with Pawpaw.
No, I'm sure you know what happened, but okay.
And did you stay?
Like, I'll forgive him for not knowing exact timelines. I'll forgive him for that, but... Or I don't want to use the word forgive, because I don't want to... Forgive and Alex Murdaugh in the same sentence should not be used, but I'll be lenient with him about not remembering timelines and stuff like that. But everything else, man... Forgetting when's the last time you saw your son? Your wife? How could you have forgot that whole journey to the kennels? And then all of a sudden now it's like... Because if he was just like, you know what? I might have stopped by the kennels on the way out to my mom's house. Like, I stopped by really quick, and that's it, and I left. But now he's like, oh, no, I rode down there with the ATV. You know, I was there. Bubba was there. He had a chicken in his mouth. You know, you take the chicken. Sometimes you got to take your hands. You got to claw your hands in there and get the dog toy out of his mouth or something like that, or the chicken out of his mouth. And then you got to put the chicken on top of the coop and make sure it's, like, recuperating because it's, like, in shock right now. And then, like, one of the dogs might have been wearing a collar. Actually, no, it's the other dog wearing a collar. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. He's going to get there. But he got so detailed. Very, very detailed. He should just be like, yeah, I mean, I guess I forgot that I stopped by there really quick on the way to my mom's house or something. But, oh, you know what? He can't say that because the OnStar GPS does not show him going to the kennels at all. This is so bad.
Stay in the house?
Yes.
For how long?
Not long.
Sorry, let me shut up.
Laid back
We'll get
on the
there.
couch, put my feet up, and like many times when Maggie asked me to do something that I didn't want to do, didn't start out doing, I changed my mind and decided I'm gonna ride up there.
Yeah, because I love my wife.
And I
do
did.
what you say.
And how did you get to the kennels?
I went on the golf cart.
Was the golf cart at the house, the main house?
Yeah, it was. And it was.
So for those of you guys who might miss this, he did say that it was in the very beginning. He said that he was at the kennels. He said that the reason why he lied to SLED that night was because he had a distrust for SLED, okay? From what we heard so far, it seems like he and other, like, authority figures, it seems like they were, like, they knew who he were. They treated him with respect and stuff because they were a prominent family, right? Maybe being a little too nice to them just because of their status. So for him to say, like, oh, no, I have a distrust of cops, like, bullshit. I don't believe that. And then if you had a distrust for cops, well, why did you continue the lie to your family and friends? And he was like, oh, well, once I lie about something, I'm going to continue the lie. I'm like, dude, Alex, that's not a good stance to take because it could equally just be applied to this right now. Once you lie about the murders, you're just going to continue to lie until you die, you know, deny till you die. So I don't know, man. I don't know if it was really smart for them to really say that. But like I said, it would be really hard to explain your way out of it. So I don't think there could have been anything to convince us out of that, because I don't know, man. He lied. He lied to his friends and family. And he was like, yeah, sometimes when you're on opiates, it makes you really paranoid and stuff. But it's like, so that paranoia took precedence over you trying to help the investigators find who the murderers were. If you really wanted the murderers to be caught, you wouldn't spend your time lying. You want to be as forthcoming, as truthful as possible, because you want it to be smooth for the investigators.
Was there most of the time.
And when you got down,
Here.
was the golf cart at the house, the main house?
Yeah, it was. And it was there most of the time.
And when you got down to the kennels, what was happening?
It's just what I thought it was. It was a little bit of chaos. I mean, it was clear to me that Mags had just let the dogs out. The two dogs that were out were really her pet dogs. One is Grady. You've heard about a black lab. That's Grady. That's Buster's dog. And the other is the yellow lab that you've heard about. That's Bubba. Bubba was mine and Maggie's dog, but it was really mine, Maggie's, Bus, and Pawpaw's dog. It was a family dog. But Bubba's the dog I hunted. I mean, Maggie loved Bubba. She loved Grady too, but I mean, she had a special place for Bubba. But anyway, when the dogs first were let out, the first thing they would do is they would run. If you look at the overhead picture that you've seen, there were planted pines right behind the kennels. So you got the kennels and the chicken coop sort of form an L shape. And in that L was some planted pines. First thing the dogs would do is go out in that kennel, and Bubba and Grady, I think, learned this from Bubba, but Grady would do it too. But Bubba had to mark every tree. I mean, he would go and he'd do a little number on this tree and that tree. You know how dogs do, and it's marking his territory. And so that was the first thing those dogs did when they came out. When I got there, those dogs were in that area. So that's why I believe that it hadn't been long before they'd been let out. Grady was chasing guineas, which was a normal thing to do.
What are guineas?
Guinea fowl is a guinea fowl is like it's like a chicken. It's a domestic bird that we had them. They make a lot of racket. It's like I know this sounds silly.
Honestly, though, I think it's good. The more details he tries to give, the more details you might be able to catch, and then the cross-examiner might be able to flip that back onto him.
But it's like a guard bird.
Go ahead, let him
Because
talk.
anytime, they just make a lot of racket anytime anything unusual is going on. If anything disturbs them, it could be a person.
I feel like it's also like a self-soothing technique to keep on talking and going on and on before you're about to talk about something really important.
Be somebody driving up, whatever. They're going to make a lot of racket. So Grady's chasing the guineas. Paul's fooling with Rogan's dog Cash. Maggie's just kind of standing there watching the dogs, which is normal. And they were in that place. As the dogs are out longer, they branch out more. But at that point in time, they were right there. So that told me they hadn't been out a long time.
When was the Snapchat video taken? Like 8:43? So you're telling me Maggie gets home at 8:17. You were at the shed with Paul. You make your way from the shed to the main house. You take a shower. All three of y'all quickly eat. Maggie and Paul head to the kennel first at 8:35, the latest. And then you're telling me you got there shortly after, but at 8:43 is when your voice is heard in that Snapchat video? Am I getting my timelines wrong? Oh, man. Because it's like I said, it's way too tight.
Bubba catches a chicken.
Oh, yeah. And what about the nap? Oh, I forgot about the nap. Yeah, he takes a shower, goes on the couch. I guess he doesn't nap anymore. And he's like, well, now I'm going to go see Maggie. But he gets there like 3 minutes after they get there. Like, I don't know, man. Honestly, I thought it was already really tight because Maggie comes over to 8:17, chows down on dinner really quick, and they take the ATV by 8:35. Like, I don't know. Like, that to me was already pretty tight, but now he wants to add in, like, all the other stuff in between that. Like, bro.
I'm talking to Maggie for just, a short time before Bubba catches the chicken. I take the chicken, I put it, when Bubba didn't chase, these dogs didn't chase the chickens to kill them. And they didn't normally kill them. They did kill them sometimes, but it was about the chase with those dogs. And they were proud when they caught one. You could just tell by the way Bubba would prance to you when he brought the chicken to you. He was proud that he had caught it, but he wasn't trying to kill it. And so most times the chicken wasn't dead, and that chicken wasn't dead. But a lot of times they would be stunned and they would be just real lethargic. So you had to take the chicken and you had to put it up somewhere where, the chicken could be by itself for a minute and it would eventually, usually,
Other way to blame is just
come
say
back
that.
to normal and go on about its, whatever a chicken does.
Okay.
Did you get the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
I did. I took the chicken from Bubba and I put it on top of that.
Now we've seen, this video of Paul with Cash, Rogan's dog. Did you know that was going on? What do you remember about that?
Yeah, I knew Paul was fooling with. When I pulled up on the golf cart, Maggie was standing back, sort of where the driveway would be. It sort of runs out at the feed room. Storage room's what we call it. It's been called the feed room. But it sort of ran out. Maggie was a little bit further up where she could see back in that angle where the dogs were. Paul was fooling with Rogan's dog back towards the kennel. If I remember when I first got there, Paul was more in the driveway, but then I knew Paul was in the kennel fooling with Cash, yes. But did I know what he was doing? I didn't know exactly what he was doing, no.
You damn right you didn't know that he was filming it.
Did
I knew he was fooling with his tail.
Was Cash in the kennel when you pulled up, you think?
Not when I first got there.
Did Bubba or Grady have any collars on?
Yes.
Both dogs? One dog? Do you remember?
I don't know about Grady, but I know Bubba had on his what we call a tracking collar. Paul, for his hunting dogs, Paul had a series of tracking collars, and I think there were 5. It might have been 6, but it's a tracking collar that had a device that would tell you where that collar was, so that Bubba was bad about, he would stay close for a minute, but then he would take off, and he especially do that on Maggie. He would take off and run, and so he had on a tracking collar that if he did that, you could, you could know, okay, he's, a half a mile down here. It's not going to follow him, but so far, but it would follow a good long distance, so you could go get the dog if he ran off, which Bubba frequently would do, especially when it was just Mags and Bubba. And so Paul probably would have been the one to put that on Bubba.
So you've got us where you
Yeah, where are they going with this?
the chicken out of Bubba's mouth and put it up on a doghouse or something?
I believe what I put it on, and I don't remember this, but I've seen pictures and all this, and I saw the chicken sitting on top of the what looks to me like a portable dog crate. Wherever it was sitting on there is where I would have put it up there. I don't have any reason to believe anybody else moved that chicken, and that chicken did die.
And what did you do after you got the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
I got out of there. I left. I went back to the house.
All right. Well, look, before we do that, we've seen the dog kennel video with Cash and Mr. Davis, and we slowed it down for him. Do you see the water hose in that video on the ground? You remember seeing that?
The water hose wasn't a big deal.
Yes, I do.
Was the water hose out? And
Obviously, in the video, but I don't specifically remember that, but I can look in that video and see it.
right.
But that's not something that I noticed.
So, but you've seen it in the video here.
Yes, sir.
And then the 2 dogs were out.
Absolutely. Bubba and Grady.
And then you head back. How did you get back to the house?
Same route. I mean, the same route I'd come on. I came down the driveway, made a left on. You saw my route.
Yeah, we did.
I drove that same route.
My question was obviously wasn't clear enough. What were you in a vehicle? You walked? What mode of transportation did you use to get back to the house?
Same way I came. I went back in the golf cart, and it is the golf cart. If you remember that Mark Ball testified that he saw where we normally would park it. You pull up, pull along the front entrance, and
Exactly. As he was leaving the kennels in a golf cart, then you would have heard the shots. But I guess the story that they're trying to stick with is they're trying to say, well, you don't know Paul and Maggie were murdered between, I don't know, was it like 8:54 and 9:06? It could have been way later, even though their phone was locked forever. But that doesn't mean anything. Maybe it's just bad reception. I don't know. That's too many. No.
come in from the left and you'd go just past it.
Lies.
Come in from the right and you'd be just past it on the left. And that's where I got in it, and that's where I put it back.
Did you do anything else before leaving after you took the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
No.
We've heard about Bubba being stubborn. How long did it take you to get chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
Well, Bubba could be stubborn, but Bubba would listen to me. And another thing, when Bubba had on that collar, one of the other features of that collar was...
What did Bubba have on the collar, or was it Grady?
Bubba had on the collar.
Bubba had the collar.
I'm really confused. Why do we care about this collars thing? Oh, man, they must be segueing to some evidence on the collar or something like that.
I know Bubba had a collar on, and I'm not
You know?
sure about Grady.
You're not sure about Grady.
If I misspoke on that, there's no question about it. Bubba had on a collar.
Okay.
I assume Grady did too, but I didn't. I didn't. Even though I saw Grady, I didn't notice for a fact that Grady had on a collar.
Okay.
But
Okay.
he probably did.
So
Makes sense to me that he did.
how long did it take to get the chicken out of Bubba's mouth?
It didn't take long. Number one, Bubba's coming back there to show me, hey, I caught this chicken. So he's not running from me. He's proud of that fact that he caught this chicken. So, I mean, he comes right up to me. Bubba was really strong, but you take your thumb when the dog's clenched and his mouth's a little bit open.
I can take more of this. I might have to come back later. I don't know, man. I feel like I can digest lies pretty well because I used to work in customer service. Dude, you used to get like the worst liars coming in all the time, especially if you ever worked in retail and they try to come in and like return some clothes and there's like no tags on there and they give you a sob story about the why there's no tags on there and they're like, well, I promise I didn't wear it, even though it looks worn as fuck. Like, I don't know, man. To me, these lies are just very entertaining.
What you do is you take your thumb and you push his gum in really tight against those sharp teeth, and his mouth opens right up.
Thank you, Alex.
Took the chicken out and put it on, I believe, the portable dog kennel.
And then left.
And then I left.
Then leave. Okay. And did you go back to the house?
I went straight back to the house, to the air conditioner.
And what did you do when you got back to the house?
It was on
Lay down on
TV.
the couch.
And then what? Well, was TV on when you went back?
I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
also, why would he go to the kennels and only stay there for like 10 minutes? The kennel is like 0.2 miles drive. Why would you only stay there for like a couple minutes? Why not just stay there a little bit longer with your family? Like, what was the rush of just being there only for like a couple minutes and then coming all the way back, right?
the TV never got cut off.
So we went back to the house, you laid down on the couch, and then what happened next?
Yeah, they're going to be like, you know what? Bubba had the audacity to kill a chicken. And because he can kill chicken, he probably did it. Took down Maggie and Paul, man.
I'm not positive. I dozed
Poor
off for
Bubba,
a minute.
about to get
or
framed.
Didn't doze off for a minute, but I got up off of the couch, and I made up my mind I was going to visit my mom.
Had you spoken to Barbara Mixon earlier in the day?
I did.
And,
I talked to Barbara most days. If I didn't see her, I talked to her.
and what was your understanding of your mother's condition late on the afternoon of the 7th?
You know what? If you do stretch out Bubba on his like 2 little hind legs and he's standing up, he might be 5'2". Bubba's a big dog, right?
Was agitated, which
Goddamn
she got
Bubba.
agitated when my dad, we were putting my dad in the hospital. I mean, he had a lot over the 18 months, 2 years. I mean, my dad was in the hospital. He was in the hospital a lot. And my mom, I believe my mom knew when my dad wasn't there because, she would get agitated. I mean, that's just the only term you can think of. She'd get agitated. She'd cry a lot. She'd be fussy when she normally wouldn't be fussy. I know Alzheimer's patients are unpredictable, but I'm convinced she knew because it happened frequently. And Barbara Ann told me, your mom's agitated. You need to check on her. I gave her medicine. She's resting. So it wasn't anything urgent. But she's resting. So what Barbara would do, and Barbara could handle her better than, my mama. We all love Barbara. My mama loved Barbara. Barbara could get my mom to do things that nobody else, when she'd fuss for anybody else, including me or my brothers or my sisters, Barbara could get her, in order. And but Barbara had given her medicine and to settle her down and calm her down, and that would sometimes make her go to sleep for a little while, but then she'd be agitated when she woke up.
Look at Jim.
Did you go check on your mom?
I did.
Jim looked like he's tired.
Where did you park when you got there?
You saw the pictures. There's 2 exits off of that deck. One of them.
I feel like Jim looks like he's like regretting taking on this client.
To the left, if you're coming down these steps, if these are the steps, it would be to the left and back over there.
All right.
Which is where I always parked, or where we always parked, anytime you were going in that entrance.
All right. I'm going to stop there and ask.
So that Sled mentioned that like he parked towards like the other entrance, and it was like towards the back where like the wooded area was, potentially maybe even closer to the shed back there.
Doug, if you don't mind pulling up States Exhibit 524, which is the GM OnStar data, and slide 38.
Oh, well, yeah. So I actually made 2 videos. So if you missed the entire trial, I did one video about day 2 to 12. And then last night, oh my God, that video took forever. But I just posted a video last night from day 13 to up until when the state decides to arrest their case.
Which is in evidence. Can you see this?
You good, Jim?
The slide with those dots?
Yes, sir.
Ballot?
I can.
Red dots here at the that seem to be joined. Where is that in relation to your?
Hold on, let me get my other water bottle. Get up and stretch. Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't really paying too much attention to Buster's like demeanor, but his demeanor during Alex's testimony, he looks like he's just kind of over it. I don't know. He could just be a very like emotionless person, but he was just kind of like just chilling there. I don't know. Not even getting teary-eyed or anything. But hey, some people are like that.
Parents' house.
Where the arrow is?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's back in the area where I'm talking about. All right, so if you look in this picture, all right, you see the you see the open area with the green grass. That's the front door.
We sure do.
Yeah, right where that circle is. That's the front door. If you look closely at the house, you can see a big dormer right in the middle of the roof. That's right over the front door. The white thing to the left of the house, that's like a parking pad where the driveway ends. And there's a parking pad. So you go if you follow the driveway all the way to the house, you're going to run straight into a carport. All right, by the carport door. Just to the left, before you get to the carport, is this area that you can see here. That's part driveway, mainly parking pad.
All right, I'm going to, Doug, if you'll pull up Defendant's Exhibit 130, which is in evidence, please, sir.
Oh, it's cold.
Where you parked that evening.
All right, this is the entrance to the right that I'm talking about. There's an exit and an entrance right in front of that door that you see there. So if you came down those steps, walk to your left, would be down there would be where I parked.
Oh, would you have parked on the grass?
You get on the edge of the grass back there. There's some grass there for sure, but it's not the area up here by the house where it's sodded and
sure.
This grass that you can really see in this picture. So it may be on the edge of the grass. Yes.
In relation to the satellite dish, are you looking at this photo? Are you to the right of that?
Yeah, you'd be to the right of that satellite dish.
Okay.
Yes.
And
I believe that satellite dish is right on the edge of the there's a hedge, and like you see I don't know what you call it, a border, like a border where the grass ends and the flower bed or whatever it is starts.
Right.
I think you can't see it, but I think that satellite's probably close to that border.
All right. Well, let's
So it'd be to the right of that in this picture.
Doug, will you pull up a Defendant's Exhibit 134? See if this is a. So
Yeah.
is the door that you're talking about?
That's it.
The stairs are those the ones where you would enter?
Right. These are the steps that I used that night that we always used. And one of the reasons being is my dad, this door goes into what we call the breakfast room. The breakfast room leads right into the kitchen. And
All right, y'all. Bubba did
so
it. Heard it here
straight
first.
through this door, all of the breakfast room
Bubba's
is
5'2".
kind of to the left. That door goes straight through another doorway. There's no door there, but it's like just an opening. It goes into the kitchen. Immediately to your right of that entrance into the kitchen is the entrance into where my mom and dad's rooms were. So if you went through that door, you were in a little area that had my mom's closet, my dad's closet. A little bit further, you go into my mom's bedroom. If you went to the right, you would go. My dad and my mom didn't sleep in the same room at this point, but the bedrooms were, they were back to back. There was a door going from one to the other that was blocked, but it was there, and then there was a bathroom. So this is really the part of the house that at their age was getting used. So that's why you went in this entrance, because my mom and whoever was caring for her.
Yeah, Bubba got the dew claw, Sometimes dog got the dew claw thing. Pull the trigger with that. When are they coming back from lunch? I have no idea, actually. I know they take usually pretty long lunch. It's an hour and 15 minutes, but sometimes I feel like it's like an hour and a half, man. I don't know. But I got the other tab up, so if they do come back, we'll have it up and we'll play the live trial.
Was always in her bedroom, which would be just on the
Sherry,
other side of the room
thank
that
you.
has these windows.
Enjoy your emotes. Welcome.
Right. All right, those would be the windows for the room where my dad slept.
Right.
And then
Hi,
my mom's
Sherry.
right on the other side. The kitchen's right there. This is the part of the house they were always in.
And are you the only one that would pull up in the back like that?
No.
Hey, where's Mr.
Common to your
Harpootlian?
brothers and your sister to do the same?
Oh, we all did it. I mean, we all
Taking a break today?
We all part
Where you at?
in the same way. If you knew you were going to the front of the house, or if you knew there was a crowd there, or for whatever, you may park on the driveway, but if you knew under normal circumstances, my dad always stayed in the breakfast room where he had a recliner and a TV. That's where my dad always was. My dad never, you would never go catch him sitting in the den up front or in a living room. He just wasn't up there. He was in this room watching TV, or either he was on this back deck. And my mom was either in her room, which was just off of that, or she might be in the kitchen or the breakfast room.
And when you got to the house, who was there? Your mother's house on the night of June 7th.
My mom was there, and Shelley Smith was there.
And what did you do when you got there?
The first thing I did was I knocked on the door. The door was locked. I knocked on the door. Shelley didn't hear me.
Shelley did say that Alex called to say that he was like pulling up or something, and then she went to the door 5 minutes later to get the door for him.
And then what'd you do next?
I called.
Called what?
I called my mom's house to let Shelley know I was there. Please come let me in.
Okay. And is that the house phone that's been referred to?
Yes.
Okay. And
Do we have a record for Alex's phone of when he called Shelley, where exactly on the map he was? Like, was he already in front of the house, or was he like on the way to his house or to her house?
did she let you in?
Sure.
And then what happened next?
I went in and I visited with my mom. I mean, you want me to go into detail on that?
Well, just briefly.
Yeah, I mean, you want to detail about everything
I went
else,
in
you
the
might as
house.
well.
In my mom's bedroom, my mom had a bed that was where she slept in normal times. It was like, a bed with, the poles coming out of the corner, a poster bed that coming out of the corners. And she
Okay.
had a bed like that where she slept, but she didn't sleep there anymore. But it was in the room. It was a hospital bed. So when you walked in the room, her bed was to the right. Against the wall to the left was a hospital bed, like a single bed, but a hospital bed, and a TV. And then there was a recliner where whoever was helping her would usually sit. So I went in and I sat down on my mom's hospital bed. And I just talked to her for a minute. My mom was awake. And I
Yeah,
held
where's
her hand,
Harpootlian? I don't see him.
And
What kind of condition was she in?
she was, her condition was not good at any time, but given her overall condition, she seemed to be doing pretty well. I mean, she wasn't agitated like I thought she would be, or like I was worried she would be, or like Barbara had described her at that point. So she wasn't agitated, and I just talked to her. Anytime we talked to my mom, we always tried to be real positive and upbeat, and I just talked to her. I just talked to her, made sure she was okay.
Did you stay seated on the side of her hospital-style bed, or did you move around?
I stayed there for a few minutes. I stayed there and I talked to her more than just a few seconds.
Right.
And then, but I didn't stay there. She did look tired. So I got up and I went and I think I sat on my mom's bed for a minute to start with, and then I laid down.
Top left,
on
where?
My mom's bed, which is, that's what I normally did when I went in there. There wasn't like a lot of chairs to sit in, and I just laid back on the bed.
Now, when you
Talked to Shelley, and we watched TV.
Now, when you're talking about your mom's bed, are you referring to her regular bed?
That's right. Not her hospital bed, not the bed she was in, but her bed, the one I was talking about with like posts.
Pootie Tang. The guy in the blue suit? Which one? This one?
Let me skip something.
This guy?
Was Maggie planning to go over to your mother's with you that night?
No, she wasn't planning to go with me that night.
Okay.
No, in fact, Maggie didn't really like to visit my mom. She loved to visit my dad, and she loved to spend time with my dad. And she spent a lot of time with my mom when my mom was healthy. But, you know, I mean, by this point, my mom, she was a shell. She was a shell of her old self. And
Okay.
I mean, it was kind of sad to go and visit her anytime. I mean, she wasn't healthy, and Maggie didn't like to go and just visit my mom.
When you left Moselle to head to Almeda the evening after you'd gone back to the house at Moselle, what
Say that again, Jim?
What exit did you use?
Jim?
Of the Moselle property
repeat
when you're
that,
going
please?
to Almeda on the evening of June 7th?
I went out the main gates, which would be straight ahead. You've heard of the two gates. There's the shop entrance. There's actually several entrances, but the main ones we used, there was an entrance by the Dove Field, there was an entrance further down by Sawtooth Oaks, but the main ones we used were the shop entrance and what we call the main entrance, where the brick gates were.
Did you go? Why didn't you go by the kennels on your way out?
There wasn't a reason to go by the kennels at that point, and I was going to Almeda, which the main gate would be the gates that were closer.
In some form that you were leaving to go to see your mom?
I tried to call her.
And did she answer?
No.
And what'd you do after that?
I think I tried to call her again.
I know, right? Were you in a hurry to your mom's house and back to Moselle?
And
Were you driving fast?
did she answer?
No, she didn't answer. And at some point, I texted her after that.
Well, the fact that she didn't answer on 2 times, did that concern you?
At that time,
Right.
it didn't concern me at all. Number one,
He called Paul too, right?
she was with Paw.
Yeah, because he was trying to say the prosecutors or the state never asked for
No,
those clothes.
I mean, number two, I mean, it's not unusual to not be able to get somebody all the time when they're at the house or they're on the property. I mean, you've heard all the testimony about how spotty cell service was. So, no, at the time, it didn't strike me as anything unusual.
Okay. Now, moving back to Almeda, you spent time with your mother, and then you left to head back to Moselle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you drive straight back to Moselle?
I did.
Now, Alec, there's some information from the telemetry data off your Suburban and perhaps some of this OnStar GPS data that indicates that at some point in time in your mother's driveway, you stopped for about a minute. Do you recall seeing that data?
I did.
What were you doing when you stopped? Do you recall?
I was getting my phone. My phone had gotten. There was a console in the middle of my car, and my phone had gotten down in the console, between the console and the seat, where you couldn't get to it.
Were you, during that minute or however long it was, were you disposing of murder weapons, Alec?
No.
Were you disposing of bloody clothes?
No.
All right, we'll believe you.
Right
Okay,
back
okay.
to,
You're not
Moselle
guilty.
can Were you driving faster than normal? Normal?
I was driving however I drive, normal way that I drive.
Yo, I hope Creighton does the cross-examination.
When you got back to the Moselle property, how did you enter the property? What entrance did you use?
Came right back through the main gate,
And what'd you do then?
went straight to the house.
And when you got to the house, what'd you do?
I went inside.
Were lights on when you pulled up? Or?
Lights were on in the house for sure. I can't remember if there were floodlights on or not. I don't believe there were any floodlights on, but there were definitely lights. All the lights in the house were on, yes.
And when you, how long did you stay inside the house, roughly?
Now that I've seen the benefit of these records, I was in there several minutes.
Obviously, I mean, were you surprised that Paul and Maggie had not made it back to the house?
You know, I don't know if surprised is the right word, but I mean, I thought they would have been back by then.
Right.
You know, but I mean, did it cause me to go into any? It wasn't like I was shocked. But I mean, I thought they would be there. I mean, I distinctly remember. You know, I went and looked. Sometimes I was very hot-natured. Number one, I was hot, I was heavy, and I was taking pills. So I was always hot. Maggie was always cold. Sometimes she would watch TV. We had a TV in the hunting room. You see on the wall there. Sometimes Maggie would be in there watching TV where she could have the thermostat different than we always kept it cold in the main part of the house. So I know I went in there and looked in there for her. It's not unusual for Maggie to be taking a bath and be not able to hear me. So I went back there and I know I did those two things and looked in those two places. And they weren't there. And so, you know, I knew they'd been at the kennels, and I assumed they were still up there.
So what'd you do?
I went to the kennels. I may have tried to call them. In fact, I probably did try to call them. I would think I called them. But as I sit here right now, I'm not positive, but I would think I did. Would think I tried to call them to see.
Oh, bullshit. You studied your phone records. You know the answer to that. Come on, don't act like you don't know. You studied everything else.
And now, like, did you drive down to the kennels in your Suburban?
Yo, Alec, Cray Cray, he coming. He coming for you, Cray Cray. Cray Cray's like eating lunch right now. He's ready. It's like, I don't know if Cray Cray's going to be able to go today.
I did.
What'd you see?
Saw what y'all have seen pictures of. So bad. Can I have some water? Yeah, I went to
Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson, stop.
Did you see them on the ground when you're pulling up in your Suburban?
I did.
And what'd you do when you came to a stop, Alec?
I think I jumped out of my car. I'm not exactly sure what I did, but no, I got out of my car. I know I ran back to my car, called 911.
So now you're starting to see another part of some story changes as well. So he went there, went back to the car, because now remember, he has to say that the phone call was made with his car, because when you hear the 911 call, you can hear the echoes. It sounds like it's like the Bluetooth connection, right? So now he's got to make sure to say, oh, I went back to the car, and that's where I called 911. But let's see when he decides to check the pulse of Paul and Maggie. Does that change as well?
I called 911. I was on the phone with 911, and I was trying to tend to Pawpaw. I was trying to tend to Maggie. And I just went back and forth between them.
Were you,
Yeah, somebody needs to hand him that Amber Heard pink drink that she had on the stand. Get us some pink drink.
going to Paul and Maggie while you were on the phone with the 911 operators?
Yes.
Jim, you leading?
Yes.
And in a little bit, I'm going to play the 911 tape, but I just want to ask you, and you've told law enforcement that's been played here in the court, what did you do when you went up to Paul at some point in time?
And Paul. Paul was so bad. At some point, I know I tried to check him for a pulse. I know I tried to turn him over.
When you say you tried to turn him over, why were you trying to turn him over?
I don't know. I don't know why I tried to turn him over. Me and my boys laying face down. And he's done the way he's done. His head was the way his head was.
I think it can go either way. Like, even though like your son's like organic matter's like all over the sidewalk area or whatever, and you could totally tell that they're dead. I don't know. I could honestly see like a loved one being in denial and wanting to check the pulse anyways. Not that I'm saying that's in his scenario, but I'm just saying in general, like I think it's possible for someone to be in denial. As far as the 20 seconds thing, Cheyenne, he's gonna address that. You'll see what he says.
I could see his brain laying on the sidewalk.
He conveniently has another story of why the 20 seconds thing works out.
I didn't know what to do. I mean, I tried to turn him over. I grabbed him by the belt loop and tried to turn him over. And when I did, his phone popped out. His phone popped out.
How?
And just picked it up and I put it right back there.
Do you have any idea how it popped out?
I mean, I know it came out of his pocket when I pulled on his belt loop. When I pulled him to turn him over, and it just popped out. And I mean, it popped right beside him. It sat right beside him.
Were you able to
Where the blood at?
turn Paul at all?
How you ain't bloody? He said he got his fingertips bloody. I'm like, fingertips? That's all you got, bloody? The fingertips? What?
I mean, I didn't. I don't know if I was able to. I didn't turn him over. No.
Yeah, I need to see Paul's pants, man. I don't think we could see any of this, but like, how deep were his pockets? How did the phone fall out?
What side of the
You sure didn't pull it out?
what side of Paul were you when you were doing this?
I was on the side that was away from. I was on the side that was away from where my car was.
Okay.
I mean,
What'd you do with the phone?
I put it back on Pawpaw.
You know if you put it, you know which way it was pointing, upside down, downside, anyway?
I couldn't tell you anything about it. I know his phone popped out. I picked it up and I put it back on him.
Did you see any messages on Paul's phone?
No.
Did you go to Maggie?
Did.
Did you touch her?
I did.
Where?
Where did you touch Maggie?
I think I touched her down. It was around like, I don't know. I don't know. If you ask me exactly, I think I touched her down around her waist, but I don't know. It was so bad.
Hold on, I just realized Buster's face on the left side. I've been watching Alex the entire time. I don't know, look at Buster. Buster's just like...
Excuse me. I mean, I know I went back and forth. I went back and forth between them. I know I did.
I'd like to play, Doug, the Colleton County portion of the 911 call, which is in evidence as defendant's exhibit number 9.
So it seems like initially he said that he arrived at the scene, went to go see Paul and Maggie, checked their pulses, and then called 911. And then they had the GM OnStar information. I'm like, wait a second. You did that in 20 seconds? Well, now his story changed. Now his story is like, well, I pulled up my OnStar. I saw the bodies. I came back to the car. My car connects to the Bluetooth GPS, Bluetooth phone thing. I called 911, and as I was on the phone with 911, then I went back to check the pulse of Paul and Maggie. So that disputes the 20 seconds. But you got to remember, like before the defense was confronted with a 20-second thing, they were trying to say that like, oh, it was possible for him to, call 911 right away because he pulled up and saw their bodies through the headlights, and he called 911 then. And so it's possible that, he pulled up, saw the bodies through the headlights, called 911 right afterwards, and then meanwhile also checking the pulse as well. So I don't know. I just feel like the defense is also changing their story as well. Now they have a new solidified version that sounds even better. Now they're going with that. But man, when they were confronted with the 20 seconds, man, they sure didn't have a really good answer.
And Doug, this is the long version, the first clip, and stop it when I say stop it, please.
2021, 22 hours, 7 minutes, 9 seconds.
County Communication.
I have an Alex Murdaugh on the line calling from 4147 Murdaugh Road. He's advising that his wife and child was shot.
Okay, and so give me the address again.
It's 4147 Moselle Road. I've been up to it now. It's bad.
Okay. How did they shoot?
Alan, when you say I've been up to it now and it's bad, what are you referring to?
I'm talking about what I saw was what y'all saw pictures of. And I mean, it was bad. It was terrible. And when I first got there, I know I got out of the car.
Did you see the bodies when you were in the car? Because again, he calls 911 in 20 seconds.
I know. I got out of the car. I mean,
of arriving at the kennels.
Got out of the car, but right at first, I don't I didn't go. I don't think I went all the way to them. I think I ran back and that's when I called 911. And so I called 911, and while I was doing that, then is when I went to Maggie, and I went to Paul, and so that's what I think I'm talking about.
What? Changing story?
Keep going, please.
Oh, no. Hell no. Do it now. It's fast.
Okay. How do they shoot? Do they shoot themselves?
Oh, no. Hell no.
Okay, and are they breathing?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and you said it's your wife and your son?
My wife and my son.
Are they in a vehicle?
No, ma'am. They're on the ground out at my kennel. I thought.
Okay, and did you see anyone?
He shot in the head, and he shot really bad. He shot it.
Okay, where is he shot at?
Ma'am, I don't know, but there's blood everywhere. I see his brain. Face down. I tried to turn her a little bit, but she's got a hole in her head.
Okay, is he breathing at all?
No,
Is she? Okay, do you see anything? Do you see anyone in the area?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No.
Is there any guns near them at all?
No, there's here.
No, ma'am, just
Close your
me.
house on the outside.
If that's what you're asking, they didn't shoot themselves, ma'am.
What?
Alec, right in there, you say the word here. What, are you calling anybody or anything?
No, I'm talking to that dispatcher.
And what did you mean when you said here?
If you listen to that call, one of the first things she asked me, was, did they shoot themselves? And I knew there's no way. I mean, I knew they didn't shoot themselves. There wasn't a gun. They didn't shoot themselves. And she'd asked me that. And then she asked me another question, something about that.
And why did your lawyer entertain that?
You hear me say here, and then you hear the thing talking. I'm telling her here, and then I say something, and then you hear me say, if that's what you're asking. And I'm letting her know they didn't shoot themselves. I'm saying here, and then I give her an explanation, which you can't hear on that phone, but it's obvious to me what I'm doing, and I say, if that's what you're asking me. So, like David Owens asked me on August 11th, did I call a dog, or was I talking to somebody? There was no dog that was out, and there was nobody there.
Well, let's talk about that briefly. Well, when you got there and you saw Maggie and Paul, where were the dogs?
The dogs were in the kennels. Dogs were in the kennels. They were wherever they were when law enforcement got there.
And you've seen pictures, and they called Dale Davis to the stand and talk about the hose rolled up. Did you roll the hose up?
No.
Did you do anything down there at the kennels when you got there other than call 911 and attend to Maggie and Paul?
No, I do know that I was trying to find a flashlight. I was trying to find a gun. Other than those things, no, I didn't do anything at the kennel. I didn't do anything with any hose. I didn't do anything with any dogs.
Was there anybody with you?
No.
All right, keep going, please.
It's white. You can't see it from the road.
Okay, is it a house or a mobile home?
It's a house.
Okay, and what is your name?
My name is Alex Murdaugh.
Okay, did you hear anything, or did you come home and find out.
No, ma'am, I've been gone. I just came back.
Okay, and was anyone else supposed to be at your house?
No, ma'am. Please hurry.
We're getting somebody out there to you.
Oh, man. Oh, should have known.
Allie, we just heard you say, I should have known. What are you referring to?
I said, Paul, I should have known.
What were you referring to?
I was referring to Paul got so many threats.
He was trying so hard to convince people of that.
Think twice about. So I'm just telling him, Paul, I should have known. I won't specifically remember saying that, but I can clearly hear myself say that.
Okay. What kind of threats did you understand Paul was receiving?
I mean, Paul got the most vile threats. I mean, the stuff that was on social media. I mean, it was. I mean, you couldn't believe it. You couldn't believe it. It was so over the top. Truthfully, we didn't think anything about it. I mean, it was just so crazy that, we just. I mean, people talking about what he was going to get and how they were going to do this and get him, and I mean, it's stuff you really. I mean, we disregarded it because it's so over the top. Thought it's so over the top.
What?
Keep going, please, Doug.
Okay, what is her name?
Maggie and Paul.
Maggie is her name?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When's the last time you talked to Maggie?
Hour and a half ago, probably 2 hours ago.
What? Okay, you said about 2 hours ago you talked to them?
Approximately, yes, ma'am, approximately.
Well, you were asked the last time you saw them, and you said an hour and a half, 2 hours ago, and then she followed up 2 hours ago. You just heard that?
I did hear that, and I said approximately to her question.
When was the last time you saw them, Maggie and Paul?
Right after I took the chicken from Bubba.
Right after you conveniently remembered your story, huh? After everyone went.
Seen as timestamp 8:44 p.m. Is that correct?
That's right.
So was it shortly after 8:44?
It was.
And
It wasn't long after that, because you can hear when Bubba gets the chicken, and it wasn't long after I took the chicken from him that I left.
And then you called 911. There are records of that, but do you remember roughly 9:07?
Oh yeah, we'll catch up, Keena. Don't worry.
I mean, I've seen the records and seen the transcripts. Yeah.
I've seen the records and the testimonies, and now I'm going to change my story.
And the records of this, but this is some minutes into the conversation with 911 operators, correct?
That's right. Like.
Knowing everything we know now, I mean, was it roughly an hour and a half the last time you saw him?
It was. That would, with the time of however long it took to get to this point, however many minutes that is 10:10 to 10, however many, you can look exactly and see what point this is and know what time it is, but it's between 10 and 10:15. And so I'd seen them around
8:45, a little bit after.
He gets really detailed about everything.
What they were doing at all?
No, I talked to her in person.
You talked to her in person?
And please hurry.
But we're getting somebody out there to you. Me asking you these questions, don't slow them down, okay? And you sure they're not breathing? Is he moving at all, your son? I know you said that she was shot in the head, but what about your son?
Nobody. They're not. Neither one of them's moving.
What is your telephone number?
942-1227.
Definitely.
To my house, just to get a gun, just in case.
Josie's been coached heavily about the timeline and details. And he's been sitting here for like 20 days
Did you go
listening
back
to
to the
everyone's
house and get
story,
it done?
piecing it all together.
And is this the gun that you got? And how did you load this gun? What did you load it with, if anything?
And why get a gun if you normally have a pistol in the car? He went all the way back
That
home to
was
get his gun.
As best I can remember, I believe I got that gun off the pool table where you heard there was some other gun. I think that gun was laying with that pool table. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure it was on that pool table. Would have been the first place I came to. I know I was grabbing the first gun I could get. I grabbed a handful of shells out of the that I could get my hands on. I know the gun had a shell in it that I loaded, and I know I had a few shells. So
Have you seen in this case where there was a 16 gauge shell put in that gun?
I've seen in the records, and I've seen heard in the testimony that I put a 16 gauge shell in the gun.
Is that a 16 gauge shotgun?
It's not a 16 gauge shotgun. It's a
Why'd you
12
put
gauge.
a 16 gauge shell in it?
I obviously didn't realize what I was doing. I mean, I know you can't put a 16 gauge shell in a 12 gauge gun and not. I mean, I've been hunting my whole life. I know you can't do that. That's not a mistake I would have made. That's not a mistake I'd have made under any circumstances other
Hey, I
than.
get it. You were nervous. The cops are about to come. You're about to see if you can perform.
Why did you go back to the house to get a gun?
I just didn't know. I didn't know. I mean, you know,
I feel like his siblings believe him, though. Looking at their
Oh,
facial
I think-
expressions, I don't know. Or maybe not this guy. I don't know about this brother.
I mean, it's just. I didn't know if somebody was still out there. I don't know. I guess I didn't know.
Please keep going.
And does anything look out of place?
Ma'am, not particularly, really, no, ma'am.
Okay.
Go back to where he said he's going to my house to get a gun. Just a few seconds back, 10 seconds maybe.
I know you're upset, Mr. Murdaugh, but I don't want you to get a gun and have a gun out whenever my officers get there, okay?
Back up some more.
I will not do
Back up some more, please.
my house just to get a gun, just in case.
What is your telephone number?
942-1227. I'm going back to my house just to get a gun, just in case. I'm about 100 yards from my house.
Al, you said you're about 100 yards from the house.
That's what I said.
Is it much further than that?
I mean, as you've heard in the testimony, it's 1,100 and something feet, but
Okay.
I said I was 100 yards.
You were wrong about your estimate.
I'm sure I was wrong.
Okay. Keep going.
And does anything look out of place?
Ma'am, not particularly, really, no, ma'am.
Okay. Well, I know you're upset, Mr. Murdaugh, but I don't want you to get a gun and have a gun out whenever my officers get there, okay?
I will not do that. He's been being threatened by, my son had a boat wreck. He's been being threatened for months and months and months.
Gotta get it on record.
Several times, and he should finally quit.
Do you know who was threatening your son?
It's too many people. Over the phone. One second.
And you don't know the name of who was threatening him at all?
My son knows. And my son knows.
Your son knows who was threatening him?
I have another son now.
Okay.
But you see, Ragtime, a year after the murders, he was still out. He wasn't in prison or anything. They would have a year afterwards to go after him. In my opinion, I think he decided that day when he was being confronted by Jeannie Seckinger and things were starting to come, you know, falling down around him, family finding out about the pills and stuff. I think he decided that day. Stayed at the office a little bit, plotting, figuring out how he's going to do it, try to get all the sympathy.
The next tape of the
Man was getting desperate.
22 hours, 13 minutes, 58 seconds.
Yeah, they arrested him like a year later.
Are they close, ma'am?
Yeah, they've been around with you ever since you got on the phone with me. I have multiple people coming out there to you.
Hi, Doreen. Thank you for the $4.99. Hello. What time is it for everyone right now?
Okay, can you do me a favor, Mr. Murdaugh, and turn on the flashers on your car so that way they can see where the kennels are?
Yeah, this brother on the left, the brother on the left looks visibly upset.
Okay, I don't want you to touch them at all, okay? I don't know if you've already touched them, but I don't want you to touch them just in case they can get any kind of evidence, okay?
I already touched them trying to get to see if they were breathing.
No, Allie, that second clip starts at 22:13, 10:13, 58, and you're asked, you're told don't touch them. Had you touched them by then?
Yes,
And now he's so detailed about that.
it is.
And can you say exactly during that 6-7 minutes when you actually touched them?
I know I touched Maggie. I touched Maggie several times, but I mean, I think
Why was there no blood on you?
I don't think I touched Pawpaw, but 2 times.
Did you touch one or both of them before you got in the car and drove back to the house?
Yes. Yeah.
One or both? Do you know?
Both.
I hope it's Creighton.
All right, keep going, please.
I hope it's Creighton. Creighton Waters,
Well, I
please.
just don't want you to move anything just in case they can get any kind of evidence, okay? Okay, and did your son, I know you said that he had been threatened, did your son make reports of this at all?
Yes, ma'am.
He did.
Al, you informed the 911 operator that Paul had made reports of these threats. What are you referring to?
I mean, I just know that it had been reported. I don't know that. I mean, I don't believe there was any like formal police reports or that type of thing. But I mean, it had been reported, and I mean, it was well known.
Okay. So, were you saying he had filed some official report when you said yes?
No, I never thought there was a police report or some formal report
Because that would be a record, right?
like that. No.
Gotta be
know
careful
whether or
now how
not
you
he
lie.
made some type of report on campus.
Oh, I know he did.
What do you know?
I mean, I know that there was a time when he was asked to come meet with God, I can't even remember the gentleman's name now, but I appreciated it so much that I never thought I'd forget it. But
Is it part of student counseling service?
yeah, he was the dean of students. But anyway, he reached out to Paw and wanted to talk to him. And I mean, at first we were concerned, you know, why they want to talk to him? And I mean, even I believe I had Paul come talk to you about that because we were concerned. Well, what are they going to talk to him about? But when Paul and Jim got there, it turns out that it was really just.
Is he lying right now? I feel like he's tripping up a little bit. I don't know.
I mean, they were wanting to make sure he was okay. But, you know, just make sure he was okay. And I know that, you know, they were aware of the threats or some level of threats. And so, yeah, I mean, it had already been reported to them.
Keep going, Doug.
And what's your son's name?
Paul,
Paul?
ma'am, I'm going to call. I need to call some of my family.
Okay.
On this.
Well, do me a favor for me. Whenever you see the officer or the medics, because they're all coming to you, can you put your gun in
Look
your
at him
vehicle
scanning
for
the
me?
room. How's everyone thinking of my acting?
Okay. Well, we have them come and turn on the flashes on your vehicle so they can see you, okay?
I feel like Buster doesn't believe any of this.
You got the flashes on for me?
I do.
Okay. All right. Just, whenever you see them, put your gun up for me, okay?
Okay.
How old is your son?
22.
Okay. All right. We're getting them out there to you, okay? All right.
So, Alec, did you call family after you got off the call with the
Damage
operator?
control.
Yes.
Who'd you call?
I know I called my brother Randy. I know I called my brother John. And I know I tried to call Roro. Well, Roro's not family, but I called Randy and John. And I called Randy and John.
And then you just mentioned Rodo? You mean
Rogan. We called him Roro. I called him Roro.
Now you call him Roro?
Why did you try to call Rogan?
He's trying to show how close they are by saying Roro and using
Rogan.
these like nicknames for everyone. Oh my lord.
Rogan's house was like, I don't know, as the crow flies, maybe 2.5 miles, 3 miles. I mean, Rogan was like family.
Why didn't you call Buster?
Did you think he was the closest person?
Your real
I just
son.
I wanted somebody to be out there.
Had you seen Rogan's name on Paul's phone in any way that night?
No.
You called. Did Rogan answer?
No.
Did you try him multiple times?
Looking at these records, I believe that I did, but I believe some of those are like the FaceTime calls that are to Rogan. I mean, I'm trying to call him, but I don't believe that was me, actually. I didn't FaceTime. I didn't FaceTime people, so.
Right, in the police interviews, exactly.
Trying to call him and hitting FaceTime.
He's trying to put a show for the jury.
Hitting buttons or hitting the phone.
In the State's Exhibit 519, which is
No, I watched the trial.
timeline done by Agent Rudovsky, there's an indication, Alec, that at 10:22:09 you opened a group text message from Michael Gunn stating, "She brought the heat for Miami boys." Were you reading text messages from Michael Gunn right after you got off with the 911 operator?
I heard them ask that question. I can promise you I wasn't reading any text messages.
Didn't you Google the restaurant that they were at or something?
There's also an entry.
I don't know. Jim Griffin's like, oh God, I don't think you're supposed to say that.
Says at 10:40 p.m. that you did a Google search or a Safari browser search for Whaley's at Edisto while your wife and son are laying dead on the ground. Did you do that?
No.
What?
Whaley's is a restaurant at Edisto that we ate at a lot of times. We got takeout from a lot of times, so I'm assuming it was in my search history, pulling up the restaurant, and I obviously was trying to call people or dialing, and I hit that. I wasn't doing any Google searches.
How does calling people and search history even close to each other? What phone does this guy have? iPhone?
It's a guy named Brian White. I saw that on the call log. Brian White's a guy who was in my, what do you call it, contacts, that is a videographer that I've used in cases. I can
believe he fat-fingered that.
And he's a good guy, but we're not personal friends, so I certainly wasn't calling him.
So were you?
I don't know if Jim believes.
What does that indicate to you, that those actions on your phone? How do you account for that?
Obviously, they're unintentional. I mean, I'm doing something with my phone trying to call people, but I'm not trying to call those people. I'm not doing a Google search for any Whaley's restaurant, and I'm certainly not reading any text.
I want to ask you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to go to the jury room for a break.
Break time.
About 10 minutes. Please do not discuss the case. You'll stay put, Mr. Murdaugh.
Oh, Creighton and Harpootlian. Creighton's like, hey, I'm so glad you got your client to testify. I can't wait to cross him later. Harpootlian's like, yeah, you go ahead and do that, sir. You go ahead and do that.
We'll take a 10-minute recess. Step down. Please not discuss your testimony.
Oh, man. Geez, I wonder if he wanted to go on the stand and his lawyers were like, no. Or if his lawyers were like, you know what? We got to do a Hail Mary. You got to go up on the stand. You got to convince them. Because right now, things are not looking so good. I don't know. I really wonder if the lawyers wanted him to go up on there. So Well, I do think it's possible that you could be fat fingering and stuff when you're going through a traumatic situation and all that. But I don't know. It's just because there's so many other things that are so inconsistent. And now he's just like, he's just out of nowhere, just conveniently is like, oh yeah, I just remember this detail about this and this detail about that. And he's been sitting there for 20 days gathering all this information and seeing how he can reweave his story back to the jury. It's crazy. But I did want to mention, like, he mentions like Paul, which is I guess his nickname for his son Paul, versus like Paul. When you see him at like, like the 911 calls, the interrogations and stuff like that, the interviews, all that stuff, you hear him refer to him as Paul. But I feel like now he's trying to be performative for the jury by saying, oh, Paul, by trying to make it sound like, they're like super close and like he loves his son. There's no way he can do that. So that to me seems like a manipulative tactic right there. Another thing too, by saying like Ro, like we've heard him say like Rogan before. Like I've never heard him mention Ro. Maybe it's possible he has, but I feel like it would be more consistent. Like you would say Rogan and Ro sometimes, but like I felt like he took that opportunity with being on the stand to say like, oh, Paul and Ro just to show the jury. I don't know. Like to me, it's just way too performative. Another thing that I wanted to mention about turning over Paul and Maggie, right? So now that they had GM came in last week and they were like, oh, here's the data for Alex Murdaugh's phone. Now that we finally have that data, it shows that Alex Murdaugh got to the kennels and within 20 seconds, Alex Murdaugh called 911. And so that story was, was blowing up a little bit. And Alex Murdaugh is now saying that like, oh, like, yeah, I did like, like now here's a 911 call. So here's what I actually did. I went to the bodies. I ran back to the car because now he has to say that he was at the car because when you're calling, right, you can hear the echo in the background, meaning you're connected to your Bluetooth in your car, right? And so now that was brought up in trial, so now he's changing his story a little bit, saying, oh, I ran up to the bodies, but then I ran back because, my phone connected to the car. He had to make sure that story matched up. And then he said, oh, I called 911, and then I went back to go check on their pulse. So it's like your story is changing so much, and it's changing because you're hearing what the evidence is presenting, and you're trying to tailor your story based off of that. Because, before he was like, yeah, I went to go, I got out of my car. I went to go check the bodies. I saw them there and then I called 911. And now he's saying they're like, oh, I went to go see the bodies, came back to the car connected to my Bluetooth, called 911, and then I went back to go check the bodies. So he's definitely changing a story for that one right there. Next part is like, he said he was trying to turn Paul over and the phone falling out. Here's the thing. How deep are Paul's pockets? I wonder if they're able to get a hold of that. Like, Paul's like when you're trying to flip someone over and their phone just like falls out like that, it's possible they might have really shallow pockets and can fall out. But I don't know. I just want to know how deep Paul's pockets were and if they would be able to fall out like that, like the way he did, or if he took the phone out of Paul's pocket and he tried to see if Paul was like recording him or anything or like talking to anyone important, right? Another thing was like he said that. Before he said that like he tried to check their pulse, but now he's saying like, oh, I tried to check Maggie's pulse like 5 times and now I try to check Paul's pulse twice. How do you not have blood on you? Like if you saw your family members on the ground, you would run up to them, like maybe try to like, like you wouldn't be thinking, oh my God, let me preserve the crime scene, unless you watch a lot of true crime shit or if, if you're a part of like law enforcement or something, I don't know. But I feel like at that point, your emotions would just take over and you would try to check, you would have blood all over yourself, at least on your hands. Or if you're trying to check the pulse, there's like organic matter everywhere. You at least have some on your hands. And what would you do with that? You probably wipe it on your shirt. Like, like, I don't know. It's just to me, like, it's just so weird how he was completely clean and there was no like stains or no signs, like no blood on him, like whatsoever. Another thing, did I not write this part down? Because I had another thing that I wanted to mention. Because like he's just changing his story. Let's see. Buster faced while Alex checking the bodies. Saw them, ran back to the car connection. Oh, I had another thing I want to point out, but now I forgot. But yeah, it's crazy. I watched the trial. It's not like I already had some preconceived notions that this guy was guilty. There was not enough evidence back then. I know there was like some videos that came out, but I only covered the story when the whole Cousin Eddie roadside shooting thing happened. Because I was like, oh man, this is crazy. Like this family is just involved in like so many wild things. They're a very prominent family. 2 years before that, there was a boating incident. And then now the wife and the son was murdered. And then there's a roadside shooting. So I heard like little things about it. But like, it's not like I thought he was guilty before, we got to see the trial and stuff. What happened was during the trial, more evidence would come through, and there's some evidence that were like, yeah, it's meh, but whatever, we'll just keep listening on, right? But as they got more and more detailed and got more, especially with the Paul Snapchat thing, I feel like that really resonated with a lot of people. The fact that Alex Murdaugh told multiple people, and it's not like obfuscated or anything, he's told multiple people, law enforcement, that he was not at the kennel. And then now we have a video of him at the kennels, and people were like, well, how would you not remember the last time you saw your murdered son and your wife? That's wild to me, because he said that like after they had dinner together, he took a nap, and then he went to his mom's house. Okay. And then a video comes out with him at the kennel like 6 months later. And I guess now he's just changing his story. Now he's like, oh, I did take a little nap, and then I drove the golf cart to the kennels, and then I was playing around with the dog. The dog had the chicken in his mouth, and the dog had the collars on. Like, he was getting really detailed all of a sudden. And then he's like, yeah, and then I went back to the house, and then I took the car from, the house, and I drove to my mom's. And it's just like, oh, how would you not remember any of this? How? No way. I can forgive him for not remembering some of the time frames, because I think it's hard for people to remember, like whether you're at a place for 1 hour, 2 hour. I can forgive that. Like, there are human things that we can forgive, and there are things that we're not going to like hone down on just because like, oh my God, you forgot this. Like, yeah, there are things we forget things, but to forget that you were at the kennels and like now it's like lining up with like all the other things that you're changing your story about. It just no way. Horrible. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Buster like doesn't believe it. I think his siblings do though. Like I do. I don't know. Maybe I don't know them or anything, but just judging on like them being in the gallery and stuff. Like I think the siblings are like probably like really biased, and they want to believe the brother didn't do this and stuff like that. But like for example, like, oh yeah, him panicking and dialing 91111. Like, yeah, I can see that happening. But I could also see that he was also panicking because, dude, if you had just murdered your family and you're about to call the cops right now, like this is the point where, you're gonna find out if you fucked up or not, right? Like you would totally be nervous. So I could totally see that. The restaurant thing, him fat fingering, Googling the restaurant and stuff like that. So that part, it was I thought when he got that group message from like his guy friends with a hot girl in it, I thought he Googled that restaurant. So that's where I kind of misunderstood. I don't know. Maybe the cross-examination, maybe they'll go over that part. So because I thought he Googled that restaurant, the girl where the hot girl was at, and I was like, oh, that's really fucking weird. Like, why would he do that? But yeah, he's saying that like, oh, I was trying to dial some contacts, and then I might have like accidentally accessed my search history and then clicked on it again, and then yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I really care about that too much, to be honest. But let's go. We have a 10-minute break. Let's see. I can't believe they caught him on the stand. That's crazy. I mean, again, maybe he wanted to go up there.
You've talked about going to Paul's body and Maggie's body. Do you recall getting blood on you, on your hands, or any part of you?
Yes. Okay.
Do you know with whose blood you would have gotten on you?
I know I got blood on my fingertips.
Can you differentiate, whether it was Maggie or Paul?
It's probably both.
Just your fingertips?
Except with so much blood. But
there, turns out there was a drop of blood on the steering wheel of the Suburban. Do you know how that got there?
I mean, if it was fresh, I put it there. If it was not fresh, Maggie drove my car all the time, but I assume it got there from me touching Maggie and then touching the steering wheel that night.
And then I think maybe there's possibly blood on this gun, maybe not. I mean, do you know if you got transferred blood on anything else that night?
If Maggie's blood's on that gun, then I put it there. Maggie didn't really fool with guns other than to put them up.
There's did you submit to a GSR examination that night?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier, and that Brian Varnado testified about.
Where your hands were swabbed?
That's right.
And then your clothes were collected by, I don't know if it's Agent Owen or someone else?
That's correct.
and turns out there's some GSR on your shirt and on your shorts. And did you handle this gun? This is
Yes.
this is item 22 that.
Yes, I basically had that gun with me until I put it up against my car. When the police officer, I think it was Mr. Green, got there, I put it against my car.
Man, we got answers for everything. Okay.
I think Nolan had testified that this is, one of the shotguns Paul liked to use.
It is.
Was he meticulous about cleaning his guns?
Pawpaw?
Yeah.
No. Now, when he cleaned it, he was meticulous about it, but it was far and few between when he actually cleaned them.
Did Chris Watts at least have the decency to admit it
Your
towards the end?
your shirt
Decency in quotation marks.
went through testing and analysis, and you were part of this case, provided results of that, were you not?
Yes, sir. I mean, I wasn't provided at the time. I've seen them
Right.
seen all these records.
You well, just let me ask you, did you get on your shirt high velocity blood spatter from being within a distance of a shooting Maggie or Paul?
There's no way that I had high velocity blood spatter on me.
Had you seen reports that said that at one point in time?
I have seen reports that said that.
Just to be clear, were you anywhere in the vicinity when Paul and Maggie were shot?
I was nowhere near Paul and Maggie when they got shot.
Dude, if you were at the kennels and you're driving back from the kennels, then you must have heard it. Especially if you're in a golf cart, not like in a car with the roof.
Your clothing that night at the main residence at Moselle, you remember changing in? You remember what you changed into?
Do I remember?
Yeah.
I know I changed clothes, and I've learned since then what I had on, but I don't.
You don't remember? Okay.
I don't remember that at all. But I understand I had on athletic shorts and a T-shirt.
Sure. And other people have talked about this. I'm not going to repeat it, but where did you spend the night, or where did you go to after leaving Moselle when you left for the evening?
We went to Alameda too. We went to my mom and dad's house, and we stayed there.
And who went with you?
I believe that Bus and Brooklyn and I rode together. John Marvin might have been with us. I know John Marvin stayed at Alameda with us. I just don't know if he rode in the same car we rode in. But I know I rode with Buster and Brooklyn. I know that for a fact.
And the next morning, what'd you do? And we're talking about daylight hours on June the 8th. What did you do?
And we basically got up and came back to Moselle.
Do you remember roughly what time you got to Moselle?
I don't remember. No, I don't remember what time. There's things I remember about that morning, but I don't remember exactly what time we left.
And Alec, we'll get to this in more detail, but during that period of time, is it hard to remember times, what time things started and stopped, and how long things took?
I mean, it's definitely hard to remember. Now, looking at these timelines and all these records, I mean, it sure helps, but to
now you know how to keep your story straight.
To just do it off the top of my head is very difficult.
And we'll get to more of that. When you went back to Moselle on the morning of June the 8th, did you do you know whether you took a shower there, or took a shower at Alameda, or took a shower at all?
Now, I know we took a shower at Moselle. I did not take a shower before I left Alameda. We basically got up and went to Moselle, Maggie's mom and dad.
They were there?
They were coming. Tell them, see them. We got up from Alameda and we left and we went to Moselle.
And do you know? Do you even recall SLED coming in and searching the house for anything on the 8th?
I knew that. I knew they were doing it. Yeah. I knew they were doing it.
Okay.
But I don't remember. I wasn't out in that gun room and I'll see all that video and all that. But I knew SLED, was coming in there. We made the house available for them to come in there. So I can't tell you details, but yeah, I remember it.
Did you at one point just tell SLED they had carte blanche to search anywhere, anytime?
I told SLED they could do anything, anywhere, anytime that they wanted to. Anything to do with me, my property, my cars. Even though I didn't own the cars, I would get my law firm owned the cars. I would have the people. They had full, whatever they wanted, they were welcome to.
And
maybe he was cocky.
did you have any discussions with David Owen or anybody?
It would be sus otherwise if he didn't.
Consenting to General Motors to get that off the car?
Every time that I talked to David Owens, I would ask him about getting OnStar data and GPS data from phones.
And why was it important to you
Asking
to get
and getting is
OnStar
different,
data
though.
and GPS data from the phone?
To confirm where I was saying I went, what I did, GPS. At that point in time, I knew that Maggie's phone had been taken, and I knew that my Suburban and my phone and Maggie's phone never crossed paths, and that was extremely important to me. And I asked him about it every single time we talked. Every single time.
And speaking of Maggie's phone, did you know her password to her phone?
Yes, I knew her password.
Did you know her password to her computer?
Yes.
Did she know your password?
Yes.
Okay. And when Maggie's phone was located on the side of the road, did you provide SLED the password to her phone?
I did. I think I actually provided it to John Marvin, who provided it to SLED, but I'm the one who gave it to him.
Right.
He wouldn't put the passwords in anyways because if it was intruders, they're not going to know Maggie's password. They're not going to put it in.
Did Maggie's
So it makes sense that he didn't put it in the passcode.
these location services on her phone? She used them frequently.
All the time. One of Maggie's things that she liked to do was there's an app called Find My Friends that you can see what other people are doing and they can see what you're doing. Maggie loved me, Bus, Pawpaw, Brooklyn, Grandma, Papa T, Marion, the three girls, Lizzie, and there were a few others, but the people that were closest to her, she had them all in her phone, and she loved to look at that phone and see where people are, and she'd love to surprise you. Like, let's say you're at Walmart, she looks on there, and she'd love to text you, get me a TV from Walmart or something, like she follow you and see where you were. She used it all the time. And so, I just knew that there would be GPS data on Maggie's phone.
Alec, when you're being interviewed on the night of June 7th and again on June the 10th, What was your understanding as to why they were interviewing you? Why were you being interviewed?
On
By
June the
SLED?
7th and June the 10th?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he got tricked. He came on in thinking they were just going to update him.
What is his understanding of why SLED was interviewing him on the night of June the 7th and again on June the 10th?
Yeah, it was Mallory Beach.
And the basis for the objection?
401 and 402, Your Honor.
What do you mean?
Relevance, Your Honor. His understanding is not important. What he said is important, Your Honor.
Response.
Well, I can. It goes
Look
to
at his face. Look at his face.
You know, his follow. It goes to his state of mind. I mean, that's what it goes to.
Objection sustained.
Did
It's okay, Jim. You tried.
why was it important to you to be able to get data from the Suburban, data from your phone, and data from Maggie's phone?
I knew at that point in time, I knew since I was the person who found Pawpaw and Mags that I was a suspect. I mean, they kept talking about this circle, but I mean, I knew that. It was very important for me to find that, to get that.
And what was your belief as to that information? What would it have done for you?
There's no question in there that it would demonstrate that I couldn't have done this.
And when was the data from General Motors off that Suburban finally obtained?
Last week.
It was either this past Saturday or the Saturday before that, according to what was said in this courtroom.
During this trial?
Absolutely.
And to your knowledge, was GPS data ever able to be located off Maggie's phone?
I mean, not just to my knowledge, it was not able to be gotten. You know, the testimony was in here that it couldn't be gotten. It only went back to June the 9th. Everything before that was erased on Maggie's phone.
Yeah, he
Now,
changed his story so many times until one matched the
starting-
evidence.
June the 8th, when
Oh, God.
that Moselle, did a lot of people come to support you, be with you? On June the 8th?
On June the 8th.
The day after?
The next day.
Right.
Yes, sir. A lot of people.
And you mentioned your Maggie's parents and family came as well?
Yes, sir.
From that moment, June 8th, when folks, family came and to Moselle and you met with them, were you left alone by any of your family members the rest of that week?
No, I mean, I was attached to Buster. At the hip. But, I mean,
Who, Miriam?
And what
no,
happened on?
I wasn't.
And
And
what happened on June the 10th? Besides being interviewed by SLED?
My dad died. My dad passed.
And where did you stay, and with whom did you stay on the night of June the 8th, the night of June the 9th, the night of June the 10th?
On the night of June, you asked me to start on the 8th?
The 8th, yes, sir.
All right, starting on the 8th, I stayed with Buster every night. I stayed with Buster, and as long as Brooklyn was there, I stayed with Buster in Brooklyn. But we stayed with, I'm pretty sure that's beginning on the 8th. I know the 7th we stayed at Alameda, and I believe on the 8th we started staying at John Marvin and Lizzie's at Greenfield.
And how far is Greenfield from Alameda?
As the crow flies, I mean, it's no distance. It's less than 5 minutes. It's probably few minutes away.
And who stayed there? Did John Marvin and his wife Liz stay there as well?
Yes, John and Lizzie. All right, John and Lizzie stayed there, and their kids, Bus and Brooklyn and I. I know Bubba and Maymay stayed there. Well, Lizzie's mom and daddy stayed there. And my daddy's best friend and his wife came in there. I believe they came before my daddy passed. I know they came after he passed and stayed there.
And that, how many nights do you recall staying there at Greenfield?
So I stayed at Greenfield. The 7th was a Monday. I stayed Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Greenfield. I know that for a fact.
And the Maggie and Paul's funeral was Saturday? Is that right?
No, I heard that in this courtroom say it was Saturday, but
So the memorial services?
nah, their funeral was on Friday.
Oh, it was on Friday.
I know that for a fact too.
And then your father's funeral was on Sunday?
My father's funeral was on Sunday, and it was my father's funeral. I forget the term.
The wake? I don't know. I don't know anything about funerals.
But Sunday, I mean, that's when we put Papa and Mags. That's when we buried him. We didn't bury him when we had the service on Friday, because I don't think they were done. But that's when we buried them, along with my dad, on Sunday.
Yeah, look at the investigators in the background. Woo-hoo!
And Alec, what'd you do with the following week, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday?
Starting when now?
So the day after your dad's funeral.
All right, Monday. I went to Grandma and Papa T's, Somerville.
At some point Monday.
In the afternoon. You mean what did I do when I got up that morning?
Well, where did you stay?
We stayed at Greenfield Sunday night. So we woke up at Greenfield on Monday.
So and Sunday night you were with the same family members, your brother and Brooklyn and Buster and.
That's right.
The lies, the timeline,
Lizzie
the videos.
And Lizzie's mom and dad, and I believe Donnie and Paula were still there, but I can't remember when they left.
And then you went to Somerville with whom?
I believe I went to Somerville by myself, but I know Buster in the car by myself. I can't remember if Buster and I rode together, but I think we might have had separate cars. We probably did ride together that first day. I don't remember, but I know I went to Somerville and Buster was in Somerville with me, with Grandma and Papa T.
And Somerville is where Maggie's parents live?
That's right. That's Maggie's mom and dad. Maggie's mom is Grandma, and Maggie's dad's Papa T.
And did you stay with them for a few days in Somerville?
I stayed with them longer. In Somerville, yeah, I stayed with them. We stayed in Somerville Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and then we went to Greenville.
Okay. And what was in Greenville?
My niece. That was she was having a baby, and Maggie had just been
just been so excited. So,
New poll.
she's just so proud of those girls. She was so excited about the baby. And so the baby being born just became such a big deal to me.
So was the baby born?
Yeah.
Okay. And you went up?
Baby born. Beautiful little baby girl. Beautiful
Steal money
little
from the
mom.
baby too?
And then did you go up to the lake after that?
We did. Well, I mean, we stayed at this lake, Kiowee, that y'all heard about, is really close to Greenville. And so when I say we went to Greenville, we really went to Lake Kiowee. But we went up there because, you know, when she had the baby, I want to say the baby might have gotten born shortly after we got there, like Thursday, but I think it was Saturday before we could go and see them and see my niece and see the baby. So, you know, I mean, that's where we went, was to Lake Kiowee.
What does that mean when a baby gets blown?
But they live in Greenville.
Is that like a southern thing? No idea. Yo, it's so cold in here. Oh. God, I don't have the heat on. It's so cold right now.
On the morning of June 16th, I think that was that Wednesday. I think that's a Wednesday. Where'd you wake up?
Somerville.
Did you ever go to Alameda on that day?
On Wednesday?
Yes, sir.
What's the date? June what?
I don't believe so.
Did you go to Alameda at 6:30 in the morning on the?
I know for a fact that I didn't go to Alameda at 6:30 in the morning.
Really? Let's get the
was in
OnStar
Somerville.
information. Let's get the GM.
I didn't go to Alameda at any point early in the morning. I was in Somerville, and I'm not positive about this, but I know those. I know they did I know in some of those records they have. It was sometime before I left Somerville.
Did you ever take a during that week?
Stop.
Let's just start with that week following your dad's funeral. Did you ever take a tarp into the house at Alameda? A tarp.
Courtney.
A tarp.
The week following my dad's funeral?
Yes, sir.
No, I did not.
No, I'm just kidding. Keep going. Okay, note to the tarp.
There's
All right.
been I don't know where it is in any of these boxes, but this blue rain jacket. Have you ever seen that before?
Never seen it before, never touched it, and don't know anything about it.
Did you did you ever remember taking a tarp at any point in time over the house at Alameda?
No, I don't remember it. I don't remember taking a tarp over there, but, you know, I mean, Shelley's got something in her mind about that, and there may have been some point, but I certainly don't remember it, and it certainly wasn't any time around my dad's funeral.
So not a
or
concrete
the weeks
answer.
following.
Yes, no, maybe so. Okay.
I think we talked briefly about your recollection of times, and
Okay.
and I just want to play Doug from State's Exhibit 517, which is the August 11th interview, starting at 5 minutes and 52 seconds. You could pull that clip up, and
True. He must be telling the truth this time.
Okay. Tell me again what it is.
We should totally
this
believe
August
him. Yep,
11th
yep, yep.
interview, starting at 5 minutes and 52 seconds.
All right.
I was hoping his explanations would be better than this, but I don't think there's any way to explain your way out of it, to be honest. The tree trimmers are back. Dun dun.
Can we go to 5 minutes and 52 seconds?
My weeds are coming back. I gotta get the weed tarp thing and get some rocks. I don't know. I really thought that he was crying because he did it and regrets it. But I think he's so performative with all these lies coming in.
We have been. Who was at your house when you left, and what time did you go to the office? We had been to a ball game that weekend. I don't remember exactly what time. It would have been somewhere between 8:30 and 9:30, probably. Okay. 10 o'clock maybe at the latest. Okay. Something like that.
Al, on this tape, were you being asked when you went to work on the 7th?
Yes.
And you said 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning?
And then I think said 10 o'clock at the latest.
Is that correct?
No, it wasn't.
Now I've seen all these records.
Oh,
what
Lord.
does it look like? What time you went to work on the 7th?
A little afternoon.
All right.
Whoop, they're going through all the lies right now.
The Doug States Exhibit 243, which is the June 10 interview.
You know, Mr. Griffin, on that same date, though, I also, if you play that thing, and I don't know if it's right then, but if you play that further, I also told him the best way to see exactly when I went in that door is to go and get my information from my law firm. And I told them that there.
I don't think this was a big deal anyways.
You know how
What time
things
he
are
went to
electronic
work.
now, where you don't have a key, you have a key card, and you have a key card in your wallet, and so when you use it, it creates like all this other stuff, a digital footprint.
Thanks,
and I told
Alex.
David Owens that he could go get it from my office.
Thank you.
And was that a common response of yours when you were asked about specific times, that you would give them your best estimate, but you would point them to where they could find the most accurate data?
Yes, sir.
You did that more than once?
Yes, sir.
Because he probably didn't think they were going to get it.
So
He thought he was
in
in the
the
clear,
June 10th
probably.
interview, which is States Exhibit 243, and Doug, I'd like to go to 9 minutes and 59 seconds.
Hey, man, sometimes
And here
dumb people offer up
you're being
evidence
asked
that's
when
going to
did
go
Paul
against what they
arrive at
say.
Moselle?
It was just because they dumbed him.
In the afternoon. You know, I would think it'd be somewhere in the 5 o'clock range, a little bit. It was broad daylight when we were. It wasn't dusk, dark, or late.
Okay.
You know, and we rode. We just rode around. We rode around.
So did you tell him on June 10th that Paul got there at 5 o'clock time period?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I obviously did.
And was that incorrect?
He was off by like 2 hours, I think.
Yes, sir. It was incorrect.
And what time did you, looking at the records now, what time did it look like Paul actually got there?
And looking at the records, it's clear that he got there sometime around 7 o'clock.
Did at some point in time you have a conversation with Shelley Smith about, how long you were over at Alameda on the night of June the 7th? Do you remember?
I don't distinctly remember having a conversation with her about how long I was over there, but I know that I told Shelley Smith that
You were trying to coerce her
SLED was
to
going
saying
to
something.
come and talk to her, and that I'd appreciate it if she would talk to them.
I appreciate it if she lied
and
for
that
me.
She just needed to tell them the truth.
And
Oh my God,
did
this
you
guy.
take extra care not to talk to people that you knew SLED would be talking to?
Absolutely.
And why is that?
After this boat wreck that you've heard so much talk about,
What about Blanca?
in this courtroom, there were social media, newspaper. It went deeper than that, but there was so much talk about how I, fixed witnesses and structured the investigation, just things that were totally false, that were absolutely baseless, but it was said repeatedly, and it was reported repeatedly how I'd done this and would this witness and influenced this police officer and all these things. So I wasn't taking any chances.
I want to ask you about, you can take that down, Doug. Thank you. Ask you about the August 11th interview with David Owen at the SLED office in, I think, here in Walterboro. Do you remember that?
August 11th, absolutely.
Had you requested that meeting?
I've been requesting, what I'd really been requesting is some information. I've been begging David Owens to come meet with me, and specifically
Can we get a lunch break? I'm getting hungry.
I wanted Grandma, Papa T. There were so many questions that I couldn't answer. And I've been begging him to meet with me and to meet with Grandma and Papa T. I've been begging him for weeks and weeks.
And did, when you went into the meeting on August 11th, did you think that's what it was for, to give you an update?
This one right here, that's Mallory Beach's mom?
And at the conclusion of the meeting, they let you know that
It doesn't look
you're
like
their
her.
prime suspect.
What was said.
Are you sure? It doesn't look like her, is it?
Mr. Griffin?
I'll rephrase it. By the conclusion of the meeting, did they make it known to you that you were suspect?
Oh, there's no question about that. Absolutely. Now, he used a lot of, I mean, you hear it talk about how I'm in this circle and he can't get me out and this and that, but there's no doubt in my mind. There was no question in my mind what was going on.
And and during that meeting, did they show you the Snapchat video of you trying to stand up the fruit tree?
Yes.
And were you questioned about what clothing you were wearing?
And I can't remember this. I can't remember if he showed me the whole video or he showed me a picture of it.
But you have
I
great
was definitely
memory.
showed that information. I was definitely shown those clothes in that meeting on August the 11th.
And what clothes were you wearing?
The same ones you see in.
And do you remember what kind of pants?
It was khaki pants.
And what kind of shirt?
It's a button-down, short-sleeve button-down. I call it a dress shirt, but short-sleeve button-down dress shirt.
Like the shirt you got there, but just short.
Just
sleeve.
like this, but short-sleeve, and it was colored.
And it was, what color was it?
Blue.
Seafoam.
Blue with some blue stripes.
And were you questioned about when you changed out of those clothes?
I was.
And did you have a follow-up? Did you have a conversation after that meeting with SLED with Blanca about what you were wearing that day?
Absolutely.
And what was the purpose of the conversation with Blanca?
Well, they had made an issue about that in that meeting, and I
You gonna say Blanca lied?
asked Blanca about those clothes that I had on earlier that day.
Did you ask her specifically about the blue shirt?
I asked her specifically about all the clothes.
Okay.
What I asked Blanca about specifically was, did she remember getting my clothes after she came back, when she came back to Moselle, did she remember getting my clothes? Is specifically what I asked her.
I see. And why were you asking her those questions?
Because on August the 11th, they had made an issue about me still wearing those clothes, not having changed clothes when I was in that Snapchat video.
So Blanca and Miss Shelley both
That's why I
wrong.
went to Blanca.
Did they ever ask you on August the 11th whether I mean, they ask you for those clothes. Can you produce the clothes? Did they ask you that?
No, they didn't.
Have they ever asked you for those clothes?
They didn't?
No. As far as my understanding goes, my clothes were never an issue in this case until y'all figured out, as my lawyers figured out, that there was no blood spatter on me.
Sir?
Is that objection, Your Honor?
Basis for the objection.
401, 402, and beyond in speculation, Your Honor.
Mr. Griffin.
It's a matter of public record. It's a matter of public record.
What is?
The issues with the shirt and the blood test
It's a matter of public record.
filed in this case, yes, sir.
The objection is overruled.
I'm well aware that my
Right, Griffin gets a win.
clothes never became an issue in this case until my lawyers proved that this blood spatter that they said I had on my shirt from my wife and my son was a lie, and that there was no blood on my shirt. And once they filed the documents and they proved that that was a lie, all of a sudden the clothes I was wearing back on that day became an issue.
Where are those clothes? I
And that's in the
donated it, you
weeks.
know?
Leading up to the
I
strike.
had a good in my heart. I gave it to Goodwill, donated all my stuff.
Now, Alec, after the Maggie and Paul were murdered on June 7th and 8th, where did you stay and where did you keep clothes?
All right. Say that again, please.
Where were you staying overnight? Well, let me ask you this. Did you ever spend another night at Moselle after June 7th?
I never spent another night at Moselle.
Why not?
Could have. Didn't want to.
Okay. Where were you staying? Well, we talked about the days and weeks, the week afterwards, but where were you staying when you got back from the lake, Kiowee and Greenville?
I stayed. All right, so when I got back from Greenville, so
Yes.
that would be the, all right, so the first week up until my dad's funeral, then, all right, so that'd be the second week. All right, so after I know Bus and I stayed with Grandma and Papa T as much as I could. You know, I stayed with, I stayed with my brother Randy a lot. I stayed with my brother John a lot. Bus and I stayed at Edisto a little bit. But at the beginning, I really stayed with either my brother Randy and his wife Christy, or I stayed with my brother John and his wife Lizzie. And basically at that time, Buster worked for Wild Wing at that time, and they've been so kind to him and they let him be off just for a ridiculous amount of time. They were so good to him. So he stayed with me. When he had to go back to work, he would stay at my brother John and Lizzie's because it was close. So I would stay with Randy and Christy in Hampton. When Buster was there, I would almost always go to John and Lizzie's when Buster was there. I would go to John and Lizzie sometimes when Buster wasn't there. But Johnny Parker, one of my partners, had a guest house his mother-in-law had lived in when she was sick. That's really, it's right at the foot of Randy's drive. It's 100 yards, 70 yards from Randy's house. And I was going to move into that house until we figured out where I could live. So I had clothes there. I had clothes at Randy's. I had clothes at John Marvin's. I had clothes at Chichesi, which is, I think you heard Buster talk about Chichesi's, like where we went to the river, and I had clothes there. I had clothes in Somerville, and I still had clothes at Moselle.
So your clothes. Yes, sir.
Last question.
No, this. So were your clothes spread out a lot of different places?
Yes.
All right.
Hi, Ricta.
We'll break for lunch and return in an hour and 15 minutes.
Jeannie came up to me and asked me, previously Annette Griswold had come to me and asked me about the fee check in the Ferris case.
Oh, here we go.
Jeannie was coming to me and saying that she was following up on that. If she didn't, she wouldn't be doing her job, and asked me some questions.
Well, let me ask you,
which I understood
briefly. The Ferris fee, what originally happened to it? The PMPED portion of the Ferris fee.
I mean, originally?
Yes, sir. Did it come to you directly?
Yes.
Should it have come to you directly?
No.
Did when Ms. Seconder asked you about where the fee was, what did you tell her?
I can't remember exactly what I told her. The conversation got interrupted very quickly, but I told Jeannie that the funds were in Chris Wilson's account and nothing to worry about. I didn't know where the mix-up came from.
What was your level of concern about Ms. Seconder's inquiry to you on June the 7th?
There was some level of concern because she's asking me about money that I took that I wasn't supposed to have. So certainly I had some level of concern, but it wasn't a very big concern. As you heard testimony earlier, at some point Annette Griswold had sent Chris Wilson an email, something to the effect of, Alec thinks he has more expenses or something like that, seeking financial documents from Chris Wilson. When Chris Wilson I wasn't copied on that, but when Chris Wilson got that, Chris Wilson called me up and he's like,
Chris Wilson's best friend, by the way. Best friend that testified for the estate.
Pardon?
I said objection rules 801 and 802.
Response?
Your Honor, I'm not asking for what Chris Wilson said, and I'll move on.
All right, moving on, Jim.
Were you
I gotta flip
concerned
the
about
board through
Chris
this, we can
Wilson
catch up.
opening his trust account records to your law firm?
No, I was not concerned about that at all.
And why were you not concerned?
I knew that one of the people that Chris Wilson, as you heard, Chris Wilson and I were very close. We talked every day. I did work with him all the time. And, I mean, he was one of the people closest to me in the whole world. I knew everything about him.
But he didn't know anything about you?
I knew he was going through, one of his partners, and he and his partner had split up. A partner and an associate had moved to a firm in Charleston. The partner was going through a divorce. And the wife of the partner was trying to get Chris Wilson's trust documents in that case to find out the money her husband got. It didn't have anything to do with Chris and I or anything. It totally had to do with that. But I knew that Chris Wilson was not going to send any financial documents to my law firm, at least at that time, and at least not anytime soon. So while I'm sure it registered with me that I got to deal with this, at that particular time, it wasn't anything that was a big deal.
Was there an immediate urgency to the situation on June the 7th?
No.
And I believe
Downplay.
second, testified about your conversation with her. You learned that your dad was going back in the hospital.
That's correct. There was a text. I can't remember if that text came from my brother Randy or my brother John, but they were the ones that were taking my dad back to the hospital that day. And whichever one was with him, I believe it's John was with him at the hospital, but I know Randy was with him at some treatments. It's in those documents. But bottom line is, we got a text saying, we knew my dad was really sick. He had cancer and he couldn't breathe. And there was a big issue about whether his inability to breathe was coming from an obstruction caused by the cancer, which was the worst case scenario, and that's what it ended up being ultimately, and that's what he died from. But this particular text was saying, okay, we're putting him back in the hospital. The doctor thinks it's pneumonia, and which was, you know, I mean, pneumonia's never.
Val, don't forget to ult before you go.
Compared to cancer, at that time, pneumonia, that was a good thing to learn that.
So on the 7th, where the information you had, were you believe at that time that the prognosis was pretty positive for your father?
Well, it was better than the alternative. I'm not going to say it was good, but it was better than the alternative and what we had previously thought it was. It didn't stay good very long, but it definitely was better.
I don't know. Pneumonia sounds pretty painful.
Whether or not you told Ms. Seconder that that your dad's condition was terminal on the 7th. Do you remember whether you said that or not?
No, I wouldn't have said that at that time. And what Jeannie, as soon as the thing comes through that my dad's going in the hospital, Jeannie and I, as you heard, she stopped the meeting. We stopped it.
Yeah, she stopped confronting you.
Minutes. Now,
she gave you sympathy and the pity that you wanted.
And the very next day, we learned that he's terminal. And I'm just sure that a year or the amount of time that's gone by, Jeannie assumed she was terminal. He was terminal.
Speculation, Your Honor.
Objections overruled.
7th, did you believe that your financial house of cards was about to crumble?
On June the 7th?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely not.
Had you had, and I think there's
you sure?
documented evidence, state introduced, had you reached out to Russell Lafitte at Palmetto State Bank about extending a line of credit on the Moselle property?
Yeah, I had reached out to him. I can't remember the date of that text, but it was fairly recently. I had reached out to Russell.
And on June 7th, did you have equity in the Moselle property that, or you and Maggie had equity in that Moselle property?
Sure. And Moselle was fully in Maggie's name.
We know.
But yes, there was equity in Moselle. In looking at the documents that had been used, there was $1,800,000 owed. There was an appraisal for $3.3 million without timber value, and so on 1,700 acres, I don't know what the timber value was, but if you just set $1,000 an acre, that'd be another $1,000,000-something in value over and above the appraisal. I doubt the timber value was that high. I'm just using that as an example. But if it was $500, it'd be another $800,000. So, there was several $1,000,000 in equity in that Moselle property.
All right. And did you have equity in the Edisto Beach House?
Yes.
And around June 7th, how much equity did you have in the Edisto Beach House?
If I remember the records correctly, there was about $250,000 owed on that house, and whatever the value was at the time. I think there's a contract for just under $1 million. So
I thought they said he ain't got no money to pay back anyone.
$1,000.
The boat crash victims, the $10 million, the $1 million, he said he didn't have any money to pay them back.
Maggie's death make it more difficult to obtain financing immediately after the murder, around June 7th, 8th.
Maggie's, yes.
How so?
Because the entire Moselle property was 100% in Maggie's name. The Edisto property was 50% in Maggie's name. So I was only a half owner. So with Maggie, all I had to do is get her to sign the documents, which she always did. I mean, she didn't question finances. So, I mean, she signed the papers. When Maggie wasn't here, there was estate issues. I couldn't go and sign the papers like I would normally go and get a loan. So I couldn't.
Okay. Was there a hearing scheduled in the boating lawsuit where you were a defendant set for that week?
Yes.
Do you remember what day it was scheduled for?
Well, I mean, I've heard the testimony, and I'm sure I knew at the time it's June the 10th, Thursday, June the 10th.
Right. What was your level of concern about that hearing coming up on June the 10th?
About that hearing?
Yes, sir.
My level of concern about that hearing was about the venue motion that was coming up, which
Now, what do you mean by venue?
the venue motion is where a civil lawsuit is pending. And so there's laws and rules that govern where you can bring a case. There's laws and rules that govern how certain parties, a defendant or a plaintiff, can go about trying to move it from one place to another. So in this case, the plaintiffs, the Beach family, had filed suit in Hampton County. Parker's was trying to move venue to Beaufort County. And I wanted the case to stay in Hampton County. And really, that was my only thought about. I wasn't doing the legal work on those. I was a party in that case. I wasn't. I mean, Danny Henderson was primarily representing me personally. John Tiller and Amy Bauer were representing me personally. And Dawes Cook was representing me personally. And those are the guys that were doing the legal work. So, you know, I wasn't actually doing that work. But what I was concerned about was the venue motion. I had already done what I had to do for the financial motion. And Danny Henderson was on me about getting him a financial statement because...
Let's stop. So there was a motion to compel and seek a lot of financial records from you. Was that correct?
Absolutely.
And were you concerned that your house, financial house, was going to be opened up for the world as a result of that hearing?
No. I've been a plaintiff's lawyer like Mr. Tinsley that sat here. We do the same exact thing. In my law firm, the guys in my law firm are some of the best lawyers that I've ever known. And they're definitely some of the best lawyers in the state, handling some of the biggest cases that have ever gone on in this state.
So cold.
In my 27 years of practicing, plaintiffs always are trying to look and get financial documents of corporate defendants, of, you know, those type things. In my 27 years, I've never been able to get a judge to order anything more than a net worth statement prior to getting into a phase at trial. So early on in the case, I am not aware of, I personally have never, despite trying repeatedly, have never been able to get a judge to order the kind of information that Mark Tinsley was saying he was seeking.
Were you working on a document for that upcoming hearing?
Yes.
And what was that?
A financial statement. A financial statement lists your assets and your liabilities.
And had you reached out to Jeannie Seconder later the day on the 7th to get your current balance of your retirement account?
You know, I don't remember doing that, but that'd certainly be something that I did.
You did.
Because I know I'd have to have that for that financial statement. And the document that I prepared was what Mark Ball talked about that he found later in my office. And it was it was handwritten, ready to be typed up by, you know, because of the charges against Paul, I kept everything very close in the civil case. It was Danny in his office that was doing it, and I had that document prepared, handwritten in the neatest handwriting that I could make, because a secretary other than mine, a paralegal other than mine, was going to be the person who was going to put that financial information into the final document. And that's the document that Mark Ball talked about that he found on my desk whenever it was that he found it. Okay. So that was what was going to be, if necessary, what was going to be used Thursday.
Client funds. Did you do that?
I did.
Testimony of you?
Nope.
About testimony of you stealing client funds. Did you do that?
I did.
Did you steal or divert that Ferris fee away from the law firm?
I did.
How did you get in such a financial predicament?
Tell us more.
Led you to steal money that wasn't yours?
No, I'm not quite sure how I let myself.
Nah,
get
you
where I
know.
got, but it came from
Greed.
You know, I battled that addiction for so many years. I was spending so much money on pills. I got in a spot I couldn't.
Now, what type of addiction are you referring to?
My addiction is to opiate painkillers.
And when
specifically oxycodone, OxyContin.
And when did you first become dependent or addicted to opioids?
Oxycodone or opiates in general?
Opiates in general.
I'm not quite sure of the exact date, but I can give you a time frame. I hurt my knee really bad playing football in college.
Okay, you heard about that.
Surgery. And the medical science at the time was such that the surgery didn't work, bottom line. So it just didn't last. So within a couple of years of that, I started having a lot of knee troubles. And ultimately, I had to have a couple of surgeries, but the last surgery I had was, I think, around 2002 or 4. And I think it was around 4, so I would have started taking hydrocodone a couple of years before that. And I took hydrocodone, got addicted to that very quickly. I continued taking that for a long time. I'd force myself off of it, wean myself off of it. I'd go back to it. I battled that for a long time.
He needed that much money for his addiction.
I moved on to oxycodone.
Was he a rich dude? And, you had to steal money to support your addiction?
That was around 2000. That transition was around 2008, 9, something like that. And of course, You know, it just escalates, 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 and it's.
Did you?
Yeah, what was he paying for market price for Cousin Eddie?
Or go to detox on occasion?
I did.
How many times?
That I went to detox or that I detoxed?
Well, let's start with going to a detox facility.
I've been to a detox facility 3 times.
When was the first time?
December of 2017.
Okay. And before December 2017, had you tried to detox at home?
I tried to detox everywhere I could. Maggie would help me. Go ahead.
Yeah, when you went in to a, was it inpatient facility?
The detoxes, the formal detoxes that I went to?
In December 2017.
Yes, it was it was inpatient.
Nah, man, he was
All
doing
3
something else with
formal
those
detoxes that I've
pills.
done have been at the same facility called Sunrise Detox in Atlanta, Georgia.
And
Very good facility.
Jury's heard a audio tape of a telephone conference with SLED agents. Was that where you were during that meeting with Mr. Harpootli and I?
That's good.
When he was confronted about lying about the roadside killing thing, I think he was trying to get sympathy by saying, oh my God, guys, I'm going to go to detox. I'm going to detox. Oh my God, I'm an addict. Now I think he's doing it right now. He's trying to get sympathy from everyone, from the jury especially, that, oh my God, I'm like an addict. Poor me. Like, I don't know if I believe he's an addict or not. Maybe on more the fence of yes. But I think he's also trying to use that addict thing as to bolster his, like, you know, oh, poor me image.
Correct.
Yeah, he must have been
The
fucking
first time you
smuggling
went
them or
to the
selling them or something.
detox
I don't know, man.
in Atlanta.
That's a lot of money.
How long of a stay is that? Did you stay?
7 days is the opiate detox program.
And is there a difference between detox and rehab?
Yes.
What's the difference?
Detox is it's the act of getting the drugs out of your system, getting to the point where, okay, there is no longer a physical dependency, all right? And that's a big difference than the rest of the dependency, but the physical dependency is supposed to be gone after 7 days. So, in other words, there's so many things. Opiate withdrawal is, it's hard. But supposedly at the end of 7 days, you don't have those physical symptoms like, I don't want to be too graphic, but you're sick, you throw up, you have terrible diarrhea, you sweat like you're running a marathon, you can't hold your legs still, you can't lay down. Now, like what I'm talking about, the legs moving, that goes away after about 24 hours. So, after about 24 hours, you can lay down again and maybe sleep some, but you sweat, you throw up. You just have, there's so many issues, but after 7 days, those are supposed to be over. That's what detox is, the detoxification of your body.
And what's rehab?
Rehab is the period that you go to learn how to stay off. You're supposedly off after detox. Rehab is where you get help staying off.
And before September of 2021, had you ever gone to that second stage of rehab?
No.
So in December 2017, how long did it take you to relapse once you got home from detox?
Not long at all. You're still going through, though this physical dependency is gone, you still have, you're still so sick.
Is that something you've been battling for quite some time?
As long as I can remember.
How long have you been drug-free, opioid-free?
535 days. And I'm very proud of that.
All right. You remember being confronted by your law firm?
Sure I do.
And what were you confronted about?
Stealing money.
And did you admit your misconduct to your law partners?
Well, to one of my law partners and my brother and my law partners, Danny and Randy. Yeah, I mean,
Did
admit it, man.
and they learned about a fake
What's he
Forge
mumbling
account?
about?
Did you admit to the fake Forge account?
Yes, I did.
And did you tell them about your opioid struggles, opioid addiction?
I told him about my addiction. Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, were any of your law partners aware of your addiction?
Not just to my knowledge. I'm certain that they were not aware of my addiction.
How would you characterize your opioid use or addiction? Severe, moderate?
Then or now?
Not now, obviously.
In 2020, 2021?
I mean, I don't know how I would have characterized it then. After going to rehab and learning more of the things I've learned.
Do we know how much opiates he had in his system when he went to rehab? Are they going to release the medical notes?
Experiences. I mean, I will tell you that my addiction was extremely bad.
How were you able to function? Or were you able to function?
Yes, I was able to function.
You were able to practice law?
Yes.
And were you successful practicing law while you were addicted to opioids?
On some level, yes, sir, I was successful. I mean,
After you were confronted on Labor Day weekend 2021, did you resign, or were you forced to resign from the law firm?
Absolutely.
And then on Saturday, September the 4th, do you remember what happened that day?
Saturday, September 4th, yes, sir, I remember.
And what happened?
Start when I woke up.
Well, let's start after you met with Chris Wilson. Did you meet with Chris Wilson?
I met with Chris Wilson at my mom's and dad's house in Alameda.
And did you lay it out for Chris Wilson, your opioid addiction and your misconduct?
I definitely laid out my addiction. I definitely gave him some details about monies that I had taken. I didn't give him, we didn't go into all the details about all of it, but I certainly was very candid with him about the things that involved him.
Had you already just contacted the detox facility before you met with Chris Wilson on the 4th?
I believe that we had already, at that point, I believe that we had already spoken to the guy that I knew from Sunrise and made arrangements for me to go there on Monday.
Okay. And
I know we had arrangements for me to go there on Monday, and I'm sure we had to have had it by then because I went to the hospital shortly after that. So yes.
And did you reach out to Blanca to get your insurance information?
I did.
And for what purpose?
Because I was going to use my insurance at Detox and Rehab to help pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your immediate plans after? I mean, for the day after you met with Chris Wilson, did you have plans to do anything, have any other meetings on that Saturday?
I wanted to go and meet with Corey Fleming, who was another lawyer who was affected by the things I did.
Okay.
He was his co-conspirator, wasn't he?
And a good friend.
Did you go meet with Corey Fleming?
Corey Fleming's also charged.
What'd you do instead?
I'd given when I gave my pills to my brother Randy and Danny, I think I gave them to Randy, but I took a lot of pills because I knew I wasn't going to be taking any more. So Randy had my pills. I had to get some from him the night before, but I only got a small amount. I could tell, I wasn't taking anything near like what I had been taking, so I knew it was coming. And I called someone to bring me more pills. And before I met with Chris Wilson.
And did you meet this? Did the person you called bring you more pills?
I don't know if he brought me more pills or not, because by the time I met with him,
yeah, it's hard to want to believe anything he says because he's already lied so many times.
And after, the starting of the withdrawals, I changed my plans.
But just remember, he only needs one member of the jury to believe him. Only needs one.
Not to get pills from him anymore. And instead, I asked him to shoot me.
Did you ask him to shoot you as a sympathy ploy, or did you want
as a sympathy ploy?
Yes, sir.
You know what he said?
To shoot you. What was the end goal in your?
There's too much acting going on right now.
I meant for him to shoot me so I'd be gone.
And Cousin Eddie just agreed within 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of you asking him
Smith.
On the spot.
And did he in fact shoot you?
He did.
And Cousin Eddie just also has bad aiming.
Where was that located? Not your gunshot, but where were you shot in Hampton or Colleton County? Where were you?
It's Hampton County. It's right on the border of Salkehatchie Road. It runs right along the Salkehatchie River.
And why did you want to be gone?
I mean, I knew all this was coming to a head. I knew how humiliating it was going to be for my son. I'd been through so much. At the time, in the bad place that I was, it seemed like the better thing to do. I don't think that way now, thankfully, but I did at the time.
Did you have life insurance on you?
Oh yeah, I had a lot of life insurance.
And who was the beneficiary?
Maggie was the beneficiary.
How much life insurance did you have?
I had $12 million. I had a $4 million policy and an $8 million policy, for a total of 12.
Did you ever have any life insurance on Maggie?
No, never.
Did you ever have any life insurance on Paul?
No.
Look at handsome Cousin Eddie over here. He's so handsome. Yeah, handsome Latino man.
Alex, will you tell this jury about Maggie and your relationship with her?
Y'all saw a picture. She was just as beautiful inside as she was outside. And I mean, she was so adventurous. I mean, you couldn't tell her something was good or bad. I mean, she wanted to find out for herself. She wanted to do it, see it,
experience it on her own and form her own opinion. She was devoted. Those two boys, Buster, Paul, me, I mean, she made sure we didn't want for anything, ever. Fun, playful. I mean, she had a laugh that, you didn't even have to know what was funny. If you heard her laugh, you would laugh. She had this little playful look where she'd smile at you and bite her lip. I can't do it, but
oh, please don't lip bite.
You just do it. It just melts you. She was such a lady, such a feminine person, a girl, but then she had two boys, and she didn't grow up in the swamp and in the country, riding four-wheelers and hunting and fishing, and she changed everything. She became a boy's mom. Her life became ball and riding four-wheelers and doing those things. Now, don't get me wrong, she was still 100% girl, and you heard Marion say, she loved to do those things with her nieces, but she threw herself into her boys' lives. She never took not working for granted. She might not have worked, but I promise you, she worked. And she worked to make sure me and Paul and Buster had everything. She wanted a big family, and pregnancy just didn't suit her. Her pregnancies were so hard. I would leave her in the mornings and she'd be sick. I'd come home and check on her and she'd be sick. I'd come back at the end of the day and she'd be sick. She was so sick all the time with both those boys. And when we had Paw, Maggie got in trouble and Paw got in trouble. And just pregnancy didn't suit her, so we decided that, we would just have the two boys. And, I just think how hard it was on her, just made her love those boys so much more. And she did. But she was the kind of person, Maggie, she could put on the most elegant ball gown and go to the governor's mansion and hang out with,
Is Jim crying?
Most affluent people.
Jim, you okay?
Whatever. Or she could come down to, she could go to a food bank in Hampton or Walterboro and fit in. Everybody at both places would say when she left, and that Maggie, she's a good one.
Jim's crying?
She's just a special person.
But what's your relationship like? That's what the question was.
Would you ever do anything to harm Maggie?
I would never hurt Maggie. Ever.
Will you tell the jury about Paul, please, and your relationship with him?
I don't think he ever described the relationship, just how Maggie was. Except for checking on her when she was pregnant, right?
I mean, Pawpaw was just the brightest. He was the brightest. He's the most inquisitive young man. He wanted to be a part of everything. If you were working, I can remember as a little boy, you'd be working on something. It didn't matter what it was. His little head was going to come in there, his nose in there to see what you were doing. He was a man's man. He was 100% country boy. He was tough. I mean, he could hunt anything. He could catch any fish. He could run any piece of equipment. He could use any tool. I mean, he could do anything. At 22 years old, he could do so many things. I mean, he took care of so many, and he was so tough. But on the other hand, he had a side to him that was just so sweet. I mean, he wouldn't come home where he wouldn't go check on his grandparents. He wouldn't go near Somerville where he wouldn't go out of his way, check on his grandparents. You know, to be such a tough person, he would get all of his buddies and get on a boat and go watch a sunset. How many 22-year-old people you know do stuff like that? I mean, he was such a special boy. He cared about people. He was fiercely loyal. He was so misrepresented in the media. I mean, never an accurate story told about what he was. And I would challenge you right now. I would challenge everybody in this room to go find somebody that knew Pawpaw, who really knew him, that did not have an ulterior motive, that would say something negative about him. And I challenge everybody who can hear me now to do that. I mean, Paul was that kind of person. If you knew him, he would help you. And he would be glad to help you. You know, I thought Mark Ball made a good point when he said, you know, Paul might not have quite found his place yet. Paul was ADHD, and so he would jump around from thing to thing a lot. But there's absolutely no question in my mind whatsoever that Paul would have found whatever that thing was that he was going to do. And whatever that ended up being, he was going to be one of the best at it that you've ever known. And I'll tell you one more thing. I didn't even know this when Paul was alive. But, excuse me. When they were doing his eulogy, I gave the names of some of his friends, and he had a real cute friend that they were just friends, but a cute little girl that Maggie adored. I didn't know her very well, but Maggie did. Maggie adored her, but they talked to her, and Paul, we learned this from her, Julianne. And at 22 years old, I learned, Paul would tell his friends, be present, appreciate where you are, the things you have, and the people around you. I think a lot of that came from, it hurt Paul so bad when Mallory died. But I mean, 22-year-olds, do you know that think that way? Be present. Appreciate things around you. At 22 years old. He's the most special boy.
Do you love Paul?
Did I love him? Like no other. He and Buster.
Do you love Maggie?
Oh, more than anything. I love Maggie from the first time we went out.
Did you kill Maggie?
No, I did not kill Maggie. I did not kill Paul. I would never hurt Maggie, and I would never hurt Paul. Ever. Under any circumstances.
Except for that one time. Yo, can we take a break?
Thank you.
Gentlemen, we'll take a
Break time. Oh, look at Creighton about to get up. Creighton about to get up. He ready. He ready to pounce.
10-minute recess. Please do not discuss the case.
All right. Which one do you think is going to do the cross-examination? You think it's going to be Cray? You think it's going to be this gentleman right here with the southern accent? And there was another young guy. Oh, I think this young guy right here was the one that did the other one. I remember her, but honestly, when she did the direct examination, that segment was like really boring. It was like the blood serology, the DNA stuff. That was really hard to listen to. Man, which one do you think? We got Cray, we got young Loy over here, we got Southern Gentleman, and we got this lady over here. Who do we think is going to go next? Oh, man. Oh, dude. What a very interesting case. How can you believe anything that comes out of that guy's mouth after there's been so many lies? And of course, now that all the evidence is out and it's solidified evidence, he's like, oh, well, let me change my story and let me weave my facts a little bit just so it just perfectly fits into the new presented evidence. Oh, good Lord. All right, guys, get up real quick, get a good stretch in because we about to go in for